5th Annual Transportation and Highway Engineering Conference. How many of you enjoyed the Colonnade mixer last night? Very good. Thanks for coming out and networking. It was a great time there. And we still have a half-day program and a luncheon today. So stay tuned. Today we have in the morning presentations on the Illinois Center for Transportation here at the University of Illinois, a smart transportation infrastructure initiative that is underway in the planning. We have a presentation on innovative tolling and taxi strategies for cities, updates from the Illinois Department of Transportation, the tollway, and then of course we have towards the end of the morning annual recognition and awards from various agencies. And finally, the conference lunch right after we finish the awards around 12:15. I'd like to again thank our conference sponsors, Chicago Testing Lab, Civil Tech Engineering, EXP, HBM Engineering Group, HNTB Corporation, H.W. Lochner, Omega Associates, and Styler Instruments Company, and also our exhibitors in the Pond Lounge and our supporters that are all listed in the program. So we're going to kick off this morning with an update on the Illinois Center for Transportation, and I'm going to ask Christy Anderson, who's the Senior Financial Operation Manager for Illinois Center for Transportation, to come up and share what's been going on with ICT. Let's welcome Christy.
Good morning. Thank you guys for letting me give an update today on ICT. So what we're going to do is kind of just start with highlighting our vision and our mission at ICT. So our vision is to develop safe, sustainable, durable, and cost-effective transportation system. We want to do this all while promoting implementable and innovative research. ATRL is the Advanced Transportation Research and Engineering Lab. We are housed in Rangeville, Illinois. At the facility, we also have ATLAS, which you can see up here, which stands for the Accelerated Transportation Loading and Assembly. What we do at ATRL is we are looking for full-scale pavement testing facility. We have diverse resources and equipment, high industrial highways, and of course, clean lab environments.
Over the last decade, we have had a strong relationship with IDOT, and we have had numerous projects through this research effort. To date, we've had 250 projects approved. Currently, we have 40 active projects. We have several more slated to start within the next 6 months. Through all of this research, we have been able to publish 236 reports. We have contributed to the research efforts of 152 researchers. We've supported 462 graduate students, and we always want others to be involved in our research. So we looked for 28 universities that have participated, as well as 22 agencies and industry members that have helped with all of our research efforts. So the way that our research is structured is we have it structured under TAGs, which stands for Technical Advisory Groups. What this does is it allows for our research to have kind of focused areas. So to date, our 40 active projects are separated into 8 tags. The first tag is public and intermodal public and intermodal. 3% of our projects fall under that tag. Traffic operations has 17% of our projects currently. 6% fall under environment. 8% under safety, 6% under planning, 22% under structures, 5% under construction, and then 33% under pavement and materials. So what this next slide shows is that our research efforts make a significant impact through all the contribution of researchers and students. So over the past decade, you can see where that impact has grown significantly through researchers and our student efforts. Our agreement with IDOT requires that we have a certain percentage of our research outsourced outside of the University of Illinois. This slide represents that target versus the actual, and it lets you see that we are far exceeding that expectation. Next is a slide that kind of shows some of those universities and agencies and industry members that I mentioned earlier that are participating in our research. You can see here we have a vast variety of people that are participating. Another focus area at ICT is technology transfer. So we kind of have that divided into three main areas. The first is training and seminars, research and publications, and news. So with training and seminars, every year we are at TRB. Annually, we hold a bituminous conference in December. Obviously, every year we're here at THE. We also attend the Illinois Engineering Open House. And then every year we hold 2 training courses. The first one is on erosion control. In 2018, we trained 326 participants. We also hold a training course on documentation, and in 2018, we trained 706 participants in that course. Research and publications is also obviously a focus area. We have numerous presentations annually at TRB. We also are highlighted in publications on our website, as well as included in national databases. News, hopefully you guys receive some of our newsletters that go out. We have a newsletter that goes out quarterly. It reaches 6,000 plus people. As well as on our website, every month we highlight a project that either has been completed or is currently in the works. So if you haven't seen that, please check out our website and you can see how our research ongoing is highlighted. This next slide gives just a quick a representation of some of the projects that and presentations that were at TRB this past year related to ICT IDOT projects. So next I want to kind of highlight some of the research that we have done this past year. As I mentioned earlier, our research is conducted by various universities, agencies, industries, always with the focus of making implementable outcomes or results. So the first project that I want to highlight is our rehab course project. The intent of this project is to develop training materials to understand and apply fundamental concepts of pavement rehabilitation and preservation. One of the outcomes that is expected is that we are going to implement consistent practices and minimize potential errors. We're going to identify materials consistent with IDOT guidelines and practices and develop in-class and interactive online platforms. This project is being conducted by the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign. The next project is load factors using weigh in motion data. What this project aims to do is to examine the adequacy of available weigh in motion data and to develop refined live load factors based on recorded truckloads. So the outcome of this project is to provide recommendations on data collection of passing lane and driving lane recording for truck weight, to establish more precise load rates on Illinois bridges with respect to truck traffic. And once this project is fully implemented, we hope to be able to identify bridge needs in jurisdictions. This project is being conducted by Illinois Institute of Technology. The next project is the field performance evaluation of sustainable aggregate byproduct applications. This project looks to improve the sustainability and longevity of pavement by using query byproduct aggregate. The outcome is that QB aggregates can be incorporated into standard pavement construction to enhance stability and lower permanent deformation of subgrade soils, while reducing environmental and economic impacts. This project is being handled by University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign. Another project is motor vehicle crashes among older population. What this project does is it examines the mortality risk of crashes, is looking to identify how crashes may be improved by mitigating risks, and recommending strategies to improve safety. Outcome of this project is to develop risk assessment strategies using Highway Safety's 4 E's: engineering, enforcement, education, and emergency medical services. This project is handled by University of Illinois at Edwardsville. This project looks to examine the correlation between work zone exposure and related fatal and A-injury crashes. The goal is to develop prediction tools to assess safety aspects of work zones to achieve 0 work zone fatalities. The outcome of this is to provide policy guideline modifications for highway work zones and highway construction, develop crash prediction equations to assess safety performance, and to develop added safety measures. Bradley University is working on this project. The next, we have currently 2 projects right now working on roadway lighting. The first project looks at the effects of roadway lighting on pedestrian safety. What this project is looking to do is understand the effects of crosswalk lighting related to pedestrian safety. The outcome is to determine and recommend a lighting design and standard to optimize pedestrian safety. The second project that we have right now is related to highway lighting's impact on soybean growth. And what that project did is it gathered data to modify the current roadway lighting design to reduce negative soybean impacts. The outcome for this project is that they recommended limits of a 2.2 lux horizontal and 1.8 lux vertical light trespass into the field. Both of these studies are being done by Virginia Tech Institute. So the past few slides just kind of gave you a quick representation of the various research projects that we have at ICT, and also shows you how all of our research is designed to have implementable outcomes. Some of those projects that I highlighted have finished, and the actual publications are on our website. If you're interested, please check out our website for more information. Otherwise, I thank you guys for your time this morning.
Okay, at this time, I'd like to introduce our next speaker to talk about the Smart Transportation Infrastructure Initiative, STII. Everyone knows Professor Ahmad El-Kadi. He's a distinguished professor here in our Civil and Environmental Engineering Department, an expert in flexible pavements, asphalt materials, ground penetrating radar. He also directs the Illinois Center for Transportation and our ATRL facilities, and recently is the director of this STII, which is a college initiative that he's going to speak about related to all the exciting things that you've been hearing about related to transportation technology, autonomy, and connected vehicles. So let's welcome Ahmad El-Kadi.
Good morning, everyone. It's always a pleasure to be here. And today I'll be talking about a little different thing. I will be talking about our vision for the Smart Transportation Infrastructure Initiative at the University of Illinois. So with that, thank you. Can you hear me?
No.
So I have to go this way. Yes. Okay. So again, thank you so much for being here today, and I will be talking about the work that we are doing currently in order to establish a track at the University of Illinois. So in order to understand why we are doing this, if you look at the population in the United States in 2045, it will be increased by 20%. And more people, they're going to be traveling by airplane. For example, O'Hare will be increased by 68%. More trucks will be finding in our roads, and that will be increased by 44%. The e-commerce that many of you have been using, that's going to put more load on our roads and infrastructure. Also, there will be more traffic and more miles by vehicles, and that will also affecting our infrastructure. Another thing that sometimes we don't pay attention to, there is more people now living in the urban area. By 2045, you will have almost 109% of people moving into the urban area at the expense of the rural area, which is going to be decreased by 39%. So what does that mean? This means here that you're going to be having some significant increase on our infrastructure, and the demand is increasing, but the capacity is still the same, which is going to make here some issues. So what do we need to do about this? There is 4 issues that need to be addressed. The first issue is the congestion. If you look at the city of Chicago, 3 of the 8 most congested intersections in the United States are in Chicago. So we don't need to talk about this a lot because many of you are familiar with this. The cost is almost estimated at $5 billion per year just for the repairs. And there is more also related to the cost of the time when people are traveling. That's not something that we have just overnight. This has been going on for more than 100 years. So you can see that the congestions in Chicago has been happening for a long period of time. The second one is the safety. Safety is a very important issue. In the United States, if you look at the numbers, they are staggering. They are really a problem. So we have more than 0.23 million crashes, injured and disabled people per year. The number of fatality is more than 37,000, and that costs $230 billion. If we're gonna look into the state of Illinois, we look at the number of injuries, more than 93,000. The fatality is a little more than 1,000, and the number of crashes is more than 324,000. So we have some significant issue when it comes to the safety that needs to be addressed. Then we look into the infrastructure. And I'm looking at everything from the United States perspective and then look at it from the Illinois perspective. So the third issue is the infrastructure. The ASCE every year, they will have something, they call it the report card, which they will have a grade for the infrastructure. So in general, United States, they have an infrastructure of D+, which means now, in a way, we are in a poor shape here. What does that mean for us as people here? This means that it's going to cost each family around $3,400 because of the bad infrastructure that we have, or maybe $9 per day. That will be an investment of $2 trillion that it's needed, and at a yearly additional investment of more than $200 billion. Remember that the transportation is responsible for 9% of the GDP, and that accordingly will be impacting the GDP considerably at a cost of almost $4 trillion. And it will have a loss in business sale of $7 trillion, and also impacting the employment, which is going to be affected by almost 2.5 million. Now, if we look into the state of Illinois, we're a little better than the nation, so we have a grade of C-. So it's not that much better, but it's a little better. In Illinois, we have more than 100 airports. 11 of them is commercial airports, and it serves more than 42 million passengers per year. We are the third when it comes to the number of bridges. 16% of these bridges are identified as deficient. And one thing that we don't pay attention to is that there is significant amount of business is moving on water at a value of almost 23 billion. So the amount of goods that is shipped by water in the state of Illinois is at a 106 million ton. Our roads, of course, they're going to be exposed to a lot of traffic too. Currently, 42% is considered at like mediocre condition. Of course, we also considered that one of the hubs for the rail. We are the second to Texas when it comes to the number of miles for rail. Then that will take me to the four, and I think it's very important, and the governor, he alluded to the importance of sustainability. So let me take a few minutes and talk about this here, because it is an important issue for us, and it's going to be affecting us more and more as we are moving forward. Let's assume that we have a bathtub, and this bathtub, it will have some carbon dioxide that is coming into, and at the same time, it drains some of it. So every year, we have around 9.5 billion tons of carbon dioxide coming into the earth. The earth is through oceans, through just plants and so on, it will process around 5 billion of that. So the other 4.5 billion, they're gonna go somewhere. And that's where they go to the ozone area, to the ozone region. And when you get the sun comes to the earth, it will be reflected, it goes to the ozone, then it will reflect it again, and that's why everybody's talking about the increase of the climate, the temperature, or the change in the climate because of the increase in the temperature. So this is a serious problem that it needs to be addressed. So many states, I guess, now start looking into this seriously. In Europe, they do have very strict rules that they have to achieve a specific level. Everybody's looking into 2050 that we will be just at 2 degrees above what it was pre the industrial. So this is a very, very important issue that it needs to be addressed. So why we are talking about this here in transportation? Transportation has been the second to the energy as to the production of the emission and the global warming and greenhouse gases until late last year. By late last year, now we became number one. We are responsible for 28% of all the emission that is produced from the transportation area. Now, if we look into the United States, we are like, for the greenhouse gases emission, we're 4 times what it's produced as an average in the world. We're producing 15% of what's produced in the world thanks to China. We were number 1, now we're number 2, so China's number 1. And if we look into the transportation greenhouse gases emission per capita, we are at 5.45. And if we look into how much this is going to be affecting our health, we are at 4.5 times the average in the world. Let's look at how we, I guess, fare in the state of Illinois. In the state of Illinois, we are a little better. We're at 3.5 times compared to the average, as I said, for the United States is 4 times what we have in the world. So we are still above the average, 3 times what we have the average in the world. We are number 4 in the United States as to the emission. The good thing here that when you consider this per capita, we are at we are at 31. So in that case, we are not in a very bad situation, but we really need to do something about this. Most important thing, which is really good, and that's because of the use of the nuclear energy in the state of Illinois, we're a little below the average. In the United States, we are 4.5 times the average when it comes to the pollution that it's affecting the human being. Now here in the state of Illinois, we're just about the average. So these 4 issues here, it needs to be addressed. And I think one of the things that we wanted to take like kind of like a bold approach in order to resolve this is thinking about we need to change the culture of people, how they think too. It's not just through the technology. So if we look now in the United States and in Illinois in general, you'll find that the price of the gas is at 2.46. Now it's maybe 2.20 today. And unfortunately, that's increasing the use of personal vehicles and less of the transit and other like buses and trains and so on. What does that mean here? This means that there will be increased use of fuel, and accordingly, there will be more emission and more greenhouse gases in the earth. So with that, as I said, we're trying to have a holistic approach in order to address so many of these problems at the same time. So we're trying to have something we refer to as the I-Act, which is the Illinois Automated and Connected Track. This track here is a multi-platform testing arena that will allow us to test different vehicles, including high-speed trucks. And yesterday, Scott, he talked about the platooning, and I will touch on this here in a minute. What's unique about this that will allow us to have a closed testing environment? We have an open municipal environment for testing in that municipality, and also that's very close to the interstate highway system, as you're going to see here in a minute, and that's also will allow us to train our working force. So this will be an kind of like an elliptical loop, and it's going to be 2.3 miles, and that will allow the trucks to drive at up to 75 miles in an hour within 2 minutes in order to do some of the testing. So maybe oops. Did I get this here right? Let's see. Okay. So this one here will be in the Chanute Air Force Base. This area here is around 250 acres. And that's where the track will be. In addition to that, we will be adding another area, which is around 180 acres. So in total, they're going to be more than 400 acres. What's unique about this facility that it's very close to the Air Force, to the airport, and this airport is functional. It is a little more than 1 mile to the interstate highway system. It's close to the rail. So in a way, we are dealing with multimodal of transportation. So let me show you here a very short video about our vision here. So this is, I will be talking as we are seeing the video. So this is going to be locating in Rantoul, which is the home for the previous Chanute Air Force Base. And as you can see here, it's close to the 57 interstate highway system. It's close to the rail, which also there is a stopping in Rantoul. This will be a multi-purpose track. So we will have a place for testing drones. And in the future, in not very far future, you will be seeing the drones that will be used in order to move containers, trucks. We'll have an area for agriculture testing. I think that in the next 5 to 10 years, you will find no signals at the crossroads because all the cars, they will be communicating and yielding to each other. There is a dynamic test pad, environmental test chamber, and energy harvesting. So all this will be within that track that we are proposing, as you can see here in this picture. We'll have an outside loop and infinity loop that will allow for the testing, and also small and large circles. So this is here an animation. If you have been to the Atrial or to our laboratory, that's how you're going to be coming in. And this is now driving on the outside loop. And there will be 3 different lanes as well as the shoulders. As you can see on the left, there will be the testing for the container, moving the containers and using drones also for this. So that's a place for the validation of the different technologies as being developed. Yesterday, we heard about the platooning. Platooning, I will touch on it in a little bit here. It's going to be coming, no question about it, because drivers, as they drive now, the truckers, they usually drive behind each other anyway in order to save some fuel. This is the inner infinity loop that you are seeing in the inside. And now as we're moving, now we're getting into the inside here. This is the infinity loop that you're entering in. This is something we're very proud of because that's done by our graduate students. So we're very proud of this animation. So it's not professionally done outside. And you can see here on the left the environmental chamber for the testing. And this is testing within the circle loops. As I said, there is 2 loops. One is a large one, and one is a small one. And again, platooning is an important thing that we will be looking into, as you can see here in the picture, and also that ultimately will be without touching the steering. That's how things will be in the near future. So moving forward, who's going to be doing this? This is a partnership between academia, government, and the industry. We have the 3 universities, Northwestern and UIC and University of Illinois, partnering together, and we're going to be looking into the various areas of transportation and mobility, from the vehicle-to-vehicle, vehicle-to-infrastructure, and communications with the grid system, and so on. We're looking into the collaborations that we have in 3 categories. One is the people who are going to be dealing with the infrastructure, and that could be from the DOT to the major construction companies. The other partners are the vehicle entities, which is the manufacturers of vehicles and trucks and the software and so on. And the third one is the communication and telemetry, and this is the groups who are dealing with data analysts, logistics, rideshare, and so on. Why we have this at University of Illinois? In a meeting that we had last year, there's more than 120 faculty within the 440 faculty of engineering that they are working in transportation, in addition to many others who are working in other areas from human factor to psychology and so on. So we feel that we have a major talents that exist at the University of Illinois as well as at Northwestern and UIC that will allow us to work in all areas that they are related to the connected and autonomous vehicles, from the infrastructure, sensing, robotics, and so on. We're going to do this in stages. The first stage is we have a 15,000 square foot parking lot that is readily available for this. The second stage is to have the loop and the track that I talked about, and that will be the 2.3 miles for testing. Then we will be doing some testing within the village of Rantoul in collaboration with the community, and this is a good thing that the community is very welcoming of these testing. And again, we're very close to the 57, so we'll be able to test in the open area in collaboration with IDOT. All this is going to be before we are moving to a place like Chicago for deployment. We're talking about some testing that it will be going in stages to reach this. As I said, that will be not just for testing track. There will be many areas inside, such as like the communications between the vehicles before they get into the intersection, the ability to move containers between trucks and trains. So all this, before you get to the applications, it has to be developed, tested before it gets deployed. And we have the expertise, the platforms to do it at this place. As I mentioned, there is some internal zones within the track here, and I will go through them, such as the multimodal transport, which is we're going to have a monitoring tower. We will be having vehicle-to-vehicle communications, vehicle-to infrastructures. We have the smart suburban city, and that's where we'll be able to collect also data, energy harvesting from the road itself or from solar panels that they will be in place there, climate control testing facility, and sport urban city. And also for us is the autonomous agriculture. And many of the companies such as Caterpillar, John Deere, and so on, they're already well in the autonomous of the machines development, and definitely needs to be validated and tested somewhere. So these are some of the pictures. As I said, it's environmental chamber, energy harvesting, autonomous agriculture machines, and dynamic test pads for vehicles. We want to put this in the context of why we're doing this. This is because the industry is moving very fast too, and we need to be able to develop protocols, policies, and that's what IDOT and Tollway, they need to develop these policies as we are getting the autonomous and connected vehicles in. For example, here, these are just two examples. UPS, they do have drones now to take the packages and deliver it to your door. The problem is we need to work the logistics of this. Then you get now Amazon. They are thinking about warehouse in the air, and this warehouse, it has some sub-warehouses that they will be able now to deliver the packages from one place to another. Another good example here is yesterday we heard Steve talking about the platooning. Platooning is coming, no question about it. Sometimes when you are driving on the interstate, you will find that two trucks, they are driving behind each other because they know that they are saving fuel. If you get 5 trucks behind each other, the saving is 6.7% in fuel. Can you imagine? This is a lot of money for the trucking industry. But at the same time, it will do damage to our pavements. Our group right now, through working with IDOT and other schools, we're developing now methods to how to use this from a challenge and make it an opportunity. This is here the concept. In platooning, there's 3 things: the speed of the trucks, the distance between the trucks, and how these trucks shift with respect to each other. So if we work with these 3 variables, we can optimize this. So what we are doing here, we're looking into the drag force. We're modeling in the trucks, the drag forces in the trucks, because the more trucks you have, the less the drag force, the absolute drag force on the trucks, and that's how they save money. But at the same time, if they all drive on the same locations, they're going to do much more damage to the pavements. So what we're trying to do is to control these trucks, or give the message to these trucks to do a little shifting based on the damage that they can cause to the pavement. And this is going to be different between concrete and asphalt. Like if you have these very close to each other, the materials, if it's asphalt, it's going to appear that it's very high frequency. It will appear that it's stiffer, but at the same time, you are not giving it enough time for it to heal if there is a damage. So all that stuff is, we're doing the optimization. This optimization will allow us ultimately to reduce the damage and make it more fuel efficient at the same time. So we're using the science and engineering here to change this challenge that everybody's talking about for platooning, to make it more of an opportunity, and ultimately it will cause it will reduce the global warming and greenhouse gases. Here's an example. We collected the data from the I-90 in Chicago area, and we looked into just 1 mile. This is, if you are not familiar with this interstate is 285,000 ADT, and the percentage of the trucks is not very high. It's 4%. So we did a study on this, if a platooning is applied, and we do it in an optimized way. And if you have a penetration of just 10% of the trucks, and that's just within 1 mile, per year the savings could be more than $12 million. If the penetration is 50% of the trucks using this, and this is, I'm talking about just 1 mile. Of course, you can multiply by the number of miles. That's going to be at 30 million. So frankly, we will find that there is some significant benefits from platooning if we're doing it right. So lastly, I think our work here is to work with the 3 universities and the Autonomous and Connected, the Autonomous Alliance for Autonomous Vehicle Alliance in Illinois, and the Department of Transportation, and we hope that we will be talking to the Tollway soon about this. So there is 5 areas of collaboration. One is that we work with them as we're doing the research as academic research. Or the second one is we work on these things together as a team with the industry and the agencies and the researchers. The third one is to provide technical support, which means that, like yesterday, if they developed a platooning things, they wanted to see how these things will fare in the field, and that's where we will provide some testing. Another one is work with the agencies in order to allow them to develop the protocols that it's needed and the policies that it's needed as we are having more and more autonomous and connected vehicle. And the last one is to work with major companies that they will look at this as an investment. And we believe that this is from an economic as well as social point of view, it's very beneficial for the state. Where we are right now, we're in the developing of the plans, and the second, it will be after that to get into the construction and then the testing and the evaluations of different technologies. We have several milestones on this. We have a kickoff meeting last year, and we did have a forum that we met with the industry last July, and then we work with, I guess we spent a couple of days talking to, in September, to some major companies on this. The leaders from the schools, they get together that this is something that they wanted to support and go for it. And we had last November meetings between the leaders of the 3 schools and the IDOT in order to discuss ways to move forward. We developed business plan, and that will be available if anybody would like to discuss that with us. So with that, I'll be more than happy to entertain any questions regarding this. Thank you.
Questions for Ahmad? Why don't you tell us what maybe the first type of research project would look like?
Okay. I think, as I said, right now we are ready for doing testing for vehicles because of the huge parking lot that we have. The next is to try to develop the plans that will allow us to instrument this based on the needs of the companies and government as we are building the track itself. We're very excited about doing some testing in the drones right now because there is some companies who expressed their interest in drones testing. We will not be able to test the platooning and so on until we have the construction of the road done. But we are doing some significant work with partly support from IDOT for developing the theoretical models for the platooning that will be adopted when this will be completed. All right? Any other questions? Yes, sir.
You mentioned the savings on fuel and the financial savings in the transportation system. Have you also looked at the impact that will have on the motor fuel tax account and construction funding that's being available then?
So
I heard-
The question is, that, if we're saving all this fuel, how does that affect motor fuel tax and collection of funds?
I think this question is definitely for the new secretary. I cannot control the taxes, so it's. And you may ask him questions. He has been involved actually in some of the meetings that we have on this. Shall I leave that question to you for the taxes on the fuel? All I can tell you is I cannot talk about the financial point of view, but all I can tell you is if we realize these savings here, I can tell you this is where we can implement this as part of the big picture in the state. So can we materialize the savings if we are doing the platooning? This is for the industry. So what I'm saying here is we did a study a year and a half ago for the state of Illinois regarding the weight, for example, of the trucks. And accordingly, if the industry or the trucking industry is saving, let's say, 6% on fuel, then when you are doing platooning, there will be a charge for this, and that's something that it's going to be part of the policy. Yep. All right. Jeff, any other comments or question? All right.
Thank you, Ahmad.
Yep, thank you.
We have plenty of seats down here in front. It may not look like it, but there's huge in the front third if you want to come in and have a seat. There's a break afterwards, so you won't be stuck up here. Well, now we have a presentation on the Illinois view, and it's my pleasure and honor to introduce the Acting Secretary of Transportation for the Illinois Department of Transportation, Mr. Omer Osman. Mr. Osman has been with the Illinois Department of Transportation for almost 30 years, both working in the civil engineering aspects and also the management in IDOT. He started there upon finishing his bachelor's degree in civil engineering. He has, as you all know, vast experience in all areas of transportation field, particularly in management and advancement of complex projects, and as well as the condition of the existing transportation infrastructure as well as funding. It's great that he's able to speak with us today, so let's welcome the new Acting Secretary of Transportation. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I don't know who wrote that, but it sounded pretty good. Good morning. It's my absolute pleasure to be with you here today. As a professor mentioned, I'm Acting Secretary Omer Osman of the Illinois Department of Transportation. It's taking some time getting used to this since I was just appointed last Friday. I'm absolutely humbled and honored that our good governor entrusted me with this enormous task, and it's a challenge. It's a challenge that all of us have to go through together. It's not a one-person mission. I am nothing but a leader of an agency that is a professional agency, 5,100 employees strong. Each and every one of them do an excellent job. So hats off to IDOT employees. Hats off. After 29 years plus at IDOT, this is an opportunity of a lifetime for me. I care deeply about this agency and the work we do on behalf of the people of Illinois. I thank you very much. A lot of you have reached out in various forms, texting, emailing, giving me the encouragement I surely need. The advice, majority of you I have managed to reply. Some I have yet to reply to, so please don't take any exception to that. I'll get to you. We all have the same goal: building and maintaining a premier system of transportation that drives the economy, creates jobs, enhances quality of life, and improves safety across our state. We are in transition, but I'm deeply encouraged that the governor has voiced his unconditional support for a capital plan, so we could once again start investing in roads, bridges, transit, rail, aeronautics, airports, waterways, multimodal. It is badly needed. We are crunching the number as we speak, but I believe you will see some surprising results when our new and next multi-year plan is released this spring. Simply put, we have gone too far long without addressing the state's infrastructure needs. We have been putting, like Randy would have always said, Blankenhorn, a Band-Aid on a head wound. Too long. Our system is under stress, and only will show more signs of deterioration. At IDOT, we have stated repeatedly the need for sustainable funding that can grow over time, so we can get out of these up and down cycles. Our good governor has indicated that he supports a capital program that is part of a longer budget solution. That's a great thing to be hearing right now. Later this week, our legislators, both in the House and in the Senate, are going to start conducting hearings. Specifically on the House side, it's going to be at the Capitol building, and there are various committees. Just to mention a few, on March 7th, the Roads and Bridges Committee is conducting a hearing. On actually February 28th, the Higher Education Facilities Committee is conducting a hearing. On March 14th, the Transportation Committee on Mass Transit and Water Transit and Rail is conducting a hearing. March 21st, the Agricultural, Natural Resources, Environmental, and Green Energy Project, they are conducting a hearing on those specific topics. March 28th, the Healthcare and Military Facilities. April 4th, State Facilities. April 11th, again, State Facilities. On the Senate side, we already had a hearing last week. But what the Senate Transportation Committee, under the leadership of Senator Sandoval, is doing, they're going to be touring the state. Some of you might know the schedule, but if you don't know, that they're going to be conducting a hearing on March 4th in Edwardsville, March 18th in Decatur, April 8th in Peoria, April 16th in Chicago, and April 22nd in Elgin. We are very hopeful to see a framework for a capital program that comes out of this discussion. We already know the needs are in the billions of dollars across all modes. We'll be looking for your input and feedback once a plan starts to emerge, hopefully later on this spring. Clearly, this governor and this administration values diversity on state job sites and within state agencies. One of my priorities will be to reinvigorate and re-energize our disadvantaged business enterprise programs. We have many outreach and mentorship programs that have helped scores of small firms and professionals to gain a foothold in our industry. I want to redouble our effort to make sure we are communicating to the public and informing them about these opportunities. That's how you grow businesses in the state, and it does help people build a career. Internally, hiring is one of my top priorities. Having a diverse staff that resembles the population of the state of Illinois is one of my top priorities. We will continue to hire the CE trainees, the entry-level engineering technicians. We will continue to fill in vacancies within the rank, and we will, in short order, establish a management team that is talented and diverse. Talented and diverse. We need all of them, not only for the work they will be doing for IDOT today, but to build a bench. That bench will be our next generation. That bench is what we're going to need for what Dr. Akatis has been talking about, those innovative ideas. It doesn't come from Homer. It doesn't come from the old-timers like me. It comes from the new generation. The real work is going to depend on that bench. Let's talk about safety a little bit, and you're going to hear it probably twice. Safety is going to be the #1 priority, no question. At IDOT, will continue to be the #1 priority. The recent failure of the Lakeshore Drive Bridge in Chicago put a spotlight on the condition of our aging infrastructure. We have a rigorous bridge inspection program at IDOT that goes above and beyond the federal requirements. I cannot be more clear. All of the state bridges that are open today are safe. If there are any bridges we believe to be unsafe, they will be closed, period. Let's talk a little bit about funding. How we invest in our funding and allocate our resources has been a focus for us in the recent years. The department has made a strong commitment to developing an asset management plan and implementing this plan over the next several years. Not only this is a federal law, but it's actually the right thing to do. Last spring, we submitted our initial asset management plan to the FHWA and received conditional approval. Our team is working vigorously on the plan to finalize it, as our deadline is June 30th of this year. This is going to change the way we do business. We're not addressing the worst first. We're not looking at the backlog like we used to. We are focusing on the overall system and how we can achieve desired state of acceptable condition. That's our new term, desired state of acceptable condition. We have been laying the groundwork, and hopefully the message is getting out that asset management is the smarter way to use our limited resources. It's preventive maintenance. It's a smart way to keep your car, your house, your own asset running smoothly. The same logic applies to our transportation system and assets. Let's talk a little bit about innovation. We have been focused on it recently. IDOT internally have held its first ever Operation Innovative Idea Contest last spring. Submissions were over 100. They were evaluated based on size, scope of problem, certainty in coming up with a solution, ability to be implemented statewide, and potential to save time, money, or other valuable resources for the state. The finalists share their ideas with displays. The winners were announced at a special event at our Springfield headquarters. Moving forward, we are looking to expand the contest to involve all offices across the department. Innovation is happening every day at IDOT. We have embarked on possibilities to deliver more P3 projects and research ways we can take advantage of autonomous vehicles. Testing. Keeping on the innovation theme, IDOT was very proud to be the winner of the Project of the Year for the American Association of State Highway Transportation Officials, AASHTO, for the Interstate 55 Lakeshore Drive interchange in Chicago. This was the first time the department had ever won such an award in the history of the department. It was in the category of innovation, which made it more gratifying for us. All we did is we utilized some creative and new construction techniques. We employed the use of temporary bridge that cut the duration of the project almost in half and minimized the impact to the traveling public. If you're aware of the area, we had the Circle Interchange project going on at the same time. The impact, and we needed to do the Lakeshore Drive project. It was needed because of the condition of the bridge. But to have such two large projects going on at the same time was an enormous challenge. So when we cut the duration in half, you can't put a price on that. That's the stuff you cannot really measure and you cannot put money on. So that was very gratifying for us. There have been other accolades as well. We also won the Project of the Year in Illinois for the American Public Works Association for the train station renovation in Lincoln, part of a larger high-speed rail project we have between Chicago and St. Louis. Our roadside pollinator program run by our operation team was the winner of the North American Pollinator Protection Campaign. There are many other awards we have won that I'm not going to be able to mention all of them here today. A little bit about safety, and that's the one I say for last. 3 years in a row, fatalities, over 1,000 in the state of Illinois. I know it's a national trend. I know each and every state have experienced the same rise in fatalities. But we're not, in the state of Illinois, we're not about the national trend. We want to look within. IDOT cannot do it alone. We want to collaborate. We want to collaborate with the tollways. We want to collaborate with the Department of Public Health. We want to collaborate with ISP. We want to collaborate with Secretary of State and anyone, and anybody who is interested. It's got to be a multi-agency effort. It's not a one-agency mission. And you, sitting here today, have a role to play. You get any ideas, any innovative ideas, anything that we should be doing differently from the norm, would love to hear from you. Would love to sit down and actually discuss it. If it does have merit, I guarantee you here today, we're going to implement it. We don't like the numbers, and any one life, any one fatality is one too many. That's why we say, drive to zero. People think it's impossible, but think about it. Think about it. Is 5 too many? Is 10 too many? 15 too many? It could be a family member of yours. It's got to be a zero. It's got to be a zero. So please help us out. Send us emails. Ask for a meeting with us. We'll sit down and talk to you about safety, whether it's on the engineering side, whether it's on the behavioral side. With that, before I forget, is Arlene here today? Good morning.
Good morning.
Welcome home.
Thanks.
All right, I'll take any questions.
Questions? Don't be shy.
That's good.
I have a really tough question.
You're going to get a generic
You've
answer.
been talking about safety, and I've been reading in the papers about recreational marijuana use.
Okay.
Will the IDOT study whether there's any impact on fatalities from other states related to recreational marijuana use?
And that's one area we actually started looking into. Do we have a conclusion, a specific conclusion on it? No. But it's not an IDOT study only. That's when we mention the behavioral side, and then when you mention when we talk about the Department of Health being involved and the Secretary of State being involved, it's a collaborative effort. It's one area we must look into, and we have, as a department, we have not come up with a specific conclusion on it. And yes, we are looking at other states, specifically the Colorado and those states who have been ahead of us in legalizing recreational marijuana. Yeah. I'm leaving on a high note, I guess.
We didn't plan that. Well, good news is we're done early before the break, so we'll take our break now and we'll reconvene at 10 o'clock. Well, we're going to have a technical talk now. We'd like to have new faculty in our department talk about some of the research they're working on. Last year we heard from wind engineering Frank Lombardo. This year, Dr. Lewis Lee will speak. He's in our transportation engineering group, and I think the topic's quite relevant to what we've been hearing the last couple days. Dr. Lewis Lee earned a bachelor's degree in mathematics and economics at the University of Pittsburgh. He also has a master's degree in transport economics from University of Leeds in the United Kingdom. He also has a master's and PhD in civil and environmental engineering from the University of California at Berkeley. He currently now is an assistant professor in our Department of Civil and Environmental Engineering at the University of Illinois. He focuses on the economics of downtown travel and congestion. And so today he's going to talk about tolling and taxi strategies for cities. And he's been involved in some very interesting international projects related to tolling in cities. So he has a lot of time he's thought about these issues. So let's welcome Professor Lee.
Just turn this.
Yeah.
Okay. Is there a laser pointer on?
Yeah, the top.
Okay.
Turn around.
Hello, everybody. So I'm going to talk a little bit about, I guess tolling is kind of a broad term. It would also include, and it actually mainly includes methods of like taxation. A toll for a taxi in a city just being like another method of taxing it in general. So actually I was already introduced, so we'll skip over that. Okay, so the topic that we're going to talk about.
Lewis,
Yeah.
I think you're too soft.
Okay. Whoops. Okay, so the topic that we're going to, this works really well. Okay, so the topic that we're going to talk about is to be a little bit distinct from the general taxation of ride sharing and taxi services, is that it's become very common for states to levy general sales taxes or a small fee on ride sharing, especially as a way to defray the cost of regulating ride sharing. And cities do the same thing. So like if you go to Oregon or even Alabama, Wyoming, they'll have a fee that will be levied on ride sharing. So that's not actually, that's not the specific topic that we're interested in. What we're interested in is the idea of taxes and fees specifically to deal with transportation issues, which are more commonly levied at the city level or maybe at the county level, which LA County is thinking about doing right now. So the difference, the main transportation issues that are sort of brought into play in a discussion of taxing taxis, and especially ride sharing so there's Uber, Lyft, Via, these Cabify, these ride sharing services, is that so whenever politicians bring them up and they want to enact them, or if there's an interest group that advocates for them, these are the main issues that they bring up. Would be, one is competition with taxis in transit. So taxis have been around for a long time, and there's a massive regulatory apparatus, as you probably know, around taxis. And a lot of that includes revenue raising, because taxis kind of have this, especially when their supply is limited, they kind of earn these monopoly rents in some sense. And cities have tried to get a cut of that by putting pretty heavy taxes in some cases, like in New York City, on their taxis. So when ride sharing was introduced, there was this idea that it, TNCs, transportation network companies, when that was introduced, they basically were outside of that regulatory apparatus, often going under like a black car or a limousine regulatory apparatus, like in California. So they didn't have as much as onerous tax burdens on them. So part of the idea of doing this, of taxing ride sharing, has been to kind of level the playing field. And sometimes it's kind of advocated for by the traditional taxi, the people that own the medallions, or the taxi drivers. Anyway, the people that are making profits off of the traditional taxis. At the same time, you have the fact that, at least it's alleged, and I think it's probably true, that ride sharing is a pretty strong competitor with transit, especially bus transit. So there's the idea that that playing field needs to be leveled. so as to keep from, taking riders away. So they try to basically put a tax on taxis and ride sharing in order to get more people to ride transit. The other issue, the really big one in large cities, is congestion created by ride sharing. So it's actually, the truth is, it's very hard to measure the sort of marginal congestion externality from a specific type of trip, because obviously we don't really know exactly what's happening on downtown streets all the time. We have a lot better data on highways than we do about what's happening in some street in Manhattan. But at the same time, sort of intuitively, it's definitely known that there are there's a lot of trips being taken in center cities, and so it stands to reason that they probably are contributing to congestion, although how much we don't exactly know. In New York City, I think it's probably pretty significant at this point. And then the other thing is that, as you know, if you work in the transit, there is an issue of keeping up our transit systems, many of which have become quite old. So there's this kind of idea that, all right, well, we need to raise more money for our transit systems. We will go levy taxes on ride sharing and taxis as a way to pay for that, because both are transportation. So it's kind of like this circular thing. It's kind of like some people propose a carbon tax to fund green energy. It's all on the same topic. It's the idea that something that's transportation related needs to be paid for with a transportation tax. So these are the main issues that are brought up. I think that the most likely one to take over in the future would probably be the transit funding one, because just the financial position of some of our big transit systems are not very good. So this actually was hot off the presses. This is something that just came out a couple days ago, which is that LA County is considering putting a tax on ride-sharing rides as a way of basically, they say that it's to reduce congestion, but because it's at the level of the county, which most of LA County is totally empty, I think it's really about raising money to pay for their upgrades to the metro system, which is expanding quite a bit. But there is a big issue in the city of LA and in the urbanized areas with the congestion being created by the Ubers and Lyfts of the world. Okay, so basically this is something important, and this is kind of like what I wanted to talk about in more detail, which is that when you say that you're going to put a tax on something like on taxi, I'm just going to refer to taxi service to include a ride-sharing service, even though taxi is traditionally understood to be the street hail taxi service that we know about, the yellow cabs, the highly regulated ones. So I'll just use taxi for brevity, but I really mean all of these things, because often that they will wind up sharing a lot of the same taxes that are imposed today. So there's different dimensions of it. So a politician will sometimes come out and say that they want to levy a tax on Uber and Lyft, but actually there's this huge menu of taxes that you could levy, and what matters is the dimensions along which you levy the tax, right? So you can think of the tax basis. So what is it being taxed on? So it could be ad valorem, it's a percent of fares. In effect, it's kind of like a sales tax, although different cities will set the base of that sales tax to be different. For example, you could set the sales tax to be on the total fare, which includes the rider's tip, which has become a significant part, or you could levy it on just the like Uber's, what they collect part of it, or you could levy it per ride, right? So that's like a common one, which would be just $1 per ride or something like that. So then there's also a use tax. What you could think of as a use tax is just charging them for their use of their road, in which case you can either charge per mile that they travel in some area, or you could charge like per minute that they circulate in some area. And then finally, you could charge them for crossing certain boundaries. We'll talk about that in a second. So what I'm going to do is, these are the dimensions, and then I'm going to walk through simple case studies of 4 or 5 cities around the world that have implemented some kind of a tax, which illustrates each kind of dimension of taxation. And then there's also the geographic dimension, right? So it's the easiest thing to do probably is just to implement the tax on the entire jurisdiction. If it's a city of Chicago tax, you just say if there's a pickup or a drop off in Chicago, then this is the tax. Also, but at the same time, and I think this is going to become more common in the future, is a tax that only applies in certain areas, because obviously congestion in most cities that are not very small is limited to certain pockets for certain times of day. So Like in New York City, for example, we'll see that they're going to levy a special tax on pickups and drop-offs just in Lower Manhattan. And then also you could have a tax for specific destinations, so not even areas, just like when somebody calls it, are they at Navy Pier in Chicago, are they at the airport? So that's another a geographic dimension of the tax. So just, again, you have the tax basis, like what is being taxed, how is it calculated, and then you also have the geography of the tax, so the spatial dimension. Okay, so the first one is London. So London is like probably the closest to a traditional tolling system for taxis rather than the taxes that we'll see in the other cases, because it's actually attached it's attached to an existing tolling system. So basically 2003, London adopts this thing called the London Congestion Charge. Basically what they did is they put a bunch of cameras in central London so that if you drive down there, you have to pay a toll. And so the issue is, so it was originally £5. Today it's gone up to 11.5 pounds, which is about $15. That is actually a little bit more expensive than that if you were to convert it into American terms, because the pound recently fell. So it's more like close to $20 just to drive there. So basically what they're doing is they're trying to send a message, which is that there's tons of buses, there's tons of transit, there's not very many miles of streets for cars in central London, so please don't drive there if you don't have to. So basically they started levying this. Today it raises, and then all the money is devoted to bus services and walkability, so they massively expanded bus service. So if you've ever been to London, this is basically the taxes, the London Congestion Charge only applies to what you might think of as like the tourist part of London, like the inner city which you see when you visit, but this is actually a very small part of London. So if London was out here, it would go, if the map was extended, it would go all around there. So it's a pretty small area. It has like Big Ben in it, things like that. So then what happened is that London has always had this kind of proud tradition of these London taxi cab driver. So essentially, for political reasons, they were exempted from the tax. So that's like what we'd call a cab in London, or a black car. So then there's also something called a minicab, which is a for-hire vehicle in London. They were regulated under a separate thing, and they were not very common. There was not a massive amount of minicab trips, so they decided to exempt them also. Minicab is just an ordinary car that you have to dispatch. You can't hail a minicab from the side of the street. So when they implemented this tax, they put a bunch of exemptions, like exemption for a resident, exemption if you're going to a hospital that's in the middle, and then they made exemptions for taxis and minicabs. So then this was not really that big of a deal. It was more of a big deal about the taxis. They were creating a lot of congestion, but then it became a very big deal. But at the same time, congestion still fell very sharply once they implemented this congestion charge, so it was considered a success. Then, and the travel speeds rose. So then in 2012, Uber launches in London. Ubers are, the court rules, they're minicabs. They're just another type of minicab. It's just an app-based minicab, so they fall under the minicab designation and they get the exemption. So this leads to basically a complete flood of Ubers in central London. I mean, it's not horrible, but there's quite a bit of it. And so it undid quite a bit of the travel time gains that had originally been created. So London set about trying to figure out what to do about Uber and Lyft. At one point, they were going to charge them like an annual fee, a very steep annual fee just for having the license to drive the minicab in central London. But more recently, they just decided to basically to nix the minicab exemption. And so Ubers will now fall under the same charge as everybody else. So essentially what it is that if you cross this boundary, you have to pay the toll of about $15 to $20 per day. Okay, so then San Francisco is an illustration of an ad valorem tax. So originally this is an interesting case because they kind of cycled through different bases for the ad valorem tax. By ad valorem, I mean something like a sales tax. So the amount of the tax increases with the value of what you buy. So just like a sales tax, if you buy something that costs $20, you pay maybe like a $2 sales tax, $10, $1 sales tax. So Aaron Peskin is this supervisor in San Francisco who's really famous. He hates Uber and Lyft. He's compromised much more as time's gone on. But at any rate, so what they've got now is, so he enters into he originally institutes a gross receipts tax, which would just be a certain tax on all of the money that comes into Uber and Lyft. So remember, when you take an Uber, though, you pay tolls, especially in the Bay Area, where a lot of Uber trips will come over the Golden Gate Bridge or the Bay Bridge, or a tolled route. so which can be like, $5 or $6. So it's quite substantial. So they were going to add the tax essentially on top of the toll. That would be part of the basis of the sales tax, of the ad valorem tax. So then they actually entered into some negotiations. They said that, and they were also going to tax tips, because all of that money is the receipts of Uber, which then they distribute to the drivers. But then they ended up settling on a net fares tax. So the basis for that is it does not include the toll and it does not include the driver's tip. So that is actually kind of the most typical basis that's practiced, a net fares tax. So it comes into practice, and it's supposed to raise, they expect it to raise about $30 million per year in the first year. All of the money is dedicated to kind of like walkability, safe streets, transit projects, things like this, kind of there's sort of a green theme there. And that's pretty typical, is that the money will be recycled into sort of the more like socially conscious types of transportation spending. Okay, so then the other type of tax, so I talked about an ad valorem tax. There's also a specific tax. So an example of a specific tax in general would be the gas tax. It's levied per gallon. It's not in most states, it's not a percentage of the cost of gas. So whatever the cost of gas, it's always the same tax per gallon. So basically, this is just launched a couple weeks ago. It's called the congestion surcharge. So it's trying to do something kind of like what they did in London, except whereas in London, they did it on regular cars, and then later on they brought in an exemption for Ubers and Lyfts. In New York City, they're doing the opposite. They're starting with taxis and TNC trips, and then they hope to eventually implement a congestion charging system like the one in London, where everyone would have to pay about $11 to drive in Lower Manhattan. So this is the area of the that they've just implemented. So it's like 96th Street. So it's like halfway through Central Park. If you've ever been to Manhattan, there's Midtown, there's downtown. This is if you haven't been to Manhattan more recently, if you just remember it from a while ago, it's become much, much more congested in like the last 2 or 3 years for a variety of reasons. So they essentially have decided to implement this tax. So this is a specific tax. It applies per pickup. So it's $2.50 per personal taxi ride, and then $2.75 per TNC ride, because the taxis already have a lot of special taxes on them. Those are the street hail taxis. And then, but here's the thing, is that on a shared TNC ride, such as Uber Pool, Lyft Line, I think that they have those, and they don't have those here yet, but I think they have them in Chicago, I'm pretty sure. So basically, this is a way, so it's a very small fee on the shared rides, and the idea there is that they want to encourage people to use it, and they also don't want it to be unfair if the person is collecting a bunch of passengers on the way. You don't want to end up the tax being like very expensive by levying a $2.75 per ride per pickup. So anyway, it's important to recognize this is on top of a whole lot of other taxes. New York City, obviously very high tax jurisdiction. They have a lot of other taxes. They have the sales tax on the fares, and they also make them pay something into a black cab, something called the Black Cab Fund, which is a way of defraying some benefits like vision insurance, different insurance, and kind of workers' comp type stuff. I'm not sure what's all in the Black Cab Fund, but essentially part of every fare in New York City goes into this fund for the drivers. But that is the 2.5% of the fare, whereas this is a special tax that just became levied earlier this month, and all the money is devoted to subway repairs. It's massive. So they estimate maybe like around $400 million a year from this, because obviously this is the densest place in the United States. It's going to make a lot of money, and the people there are very wealthy. So this is a prelude. This is sort of an opening salvo, and the idea of getting New Yorkers used to this idea that it's going to become even more expensive to drive in Lower Manhattan. Again, it's already very expensive to drive in from New Jersey to use the tunnels, but they're going to start putting tolls on the bridges over the river there. That's not signed or anything, but that's what the mayor of New York and the governor of New York want to do, and it has a lot of support. So Chicago is an example of just a much cheaper specific tax. So they started out with a 20-cent specific tax on TNC rides. They also added a $5 tax on the pickup drop-offs at the airports, Navy Pier, and the convention center. The original tax went to the city budget and apparently raised about $72 million in 2017. Then they started to basically add on an additional surcharge, so it went up to 72 cents per ride. And it is that the additional surcharge is dedicated to the CTA, like as a way of refurbishing, all the infrastructure there. So then basically what you have here, so just to recap, what Chicago demonstrates is, we're seeing this local policy here, is that you can have the tax be you can have it geographically vary, but you can have it geographically vary so that it's certain destinations. And it's not that hard to do because when you pull out the app, it identifies where you are, like if you're at Navy Pier or something. So New York, what we see is sort of is the idea of using it as a congestion control tool, because the goal here is obviously, and probably politically, a lot of the reason it's going to be passed is that the New York subway is in very, very bad straits. The amount of debt that they have is enormous, and the delays have become very bad, so they are trying to raise some huge amount of money. I think it's like $20 billion or something. So this is kind of themed as this kind of intersects with all the different themes in the New York experience, because this tax is supposed to serve a bunch of different goals. It's supposed to raise money for transit and a huge amount of money, right? So it's not a large percentage of what they need to spend, but it is. So if they implement this, if they implement this congestion pricing system, they will raise about $1.5 billion, they estimate, per year off of just like tolls for people, tolls and taxes for people driving in downtown. So that's really significant. That would equal more than the revenues of all the other congestion pricing systems, all the other downtown congestion pricing systems in the world combined. So it's a really big deal. And then finally, you also have the issue of fairness, in the sense that New York's bus ridership has been declining. They're worried about the Ubers and Lyfts and Vias are stealing drivers away. So there you see a sort of an intersection of everything, but it is especially supposed to reduce congestion. And that's why it's called the congestion surcharge, whereas some of these are pretty blatantly just ways to raise money. This one is very specifically supposed to reduce congestion. How? Basically by getting people to demand fewer trips. The idea is that fewer drivers will wind up circulating in Lower Manhattan. So it's important to recognize also that this has come under a lot of criticism, this type of tax, because there was an earlier proposal that was taken quite seriously to basically tax them not on a per pickup basis, but on the basis of how long they circulate for, like how many minutes they spend circulating in Lower Manhattan, and or maybe how many vehicle kilometers they travel in Lower Manhattan. And it's a unique fact of the TNC model as opposed to the taxi model that they're already being tracked all the time. So the city could, so unlike a taxi where you don't exactly know how many miles it's traveling or how long it's traveling, except when it has a fare, and even then it's not especially digital all the time. Whereas to use these apps, you have to have some kind of a device in your car that's tracking you all the time. And Uber and Lyft and the other TNCs, they always know how long and how far you're traveling, and the basis for which you're compensated will be already based on that distance and time traveled. So it's kind of represents like a unique, you could call it an opportunity. It represents a unique possibility, which is the possibility of taxing these trips on the basis of how far and how long they travel for. So as you know, obviously that would be impossible to do for downtown trips for private vehicles, right? If they ever do congestion pricing in a downtown for private vehicles in the United States, if they wanted to do something like that, they would have to require everybody to install some kind of a GPS reader in their car, which I don't think that's not very likely. But the point is that here they actually had the opportunity to, and for reasons that are totally and that was the sort of the plan pushed heavily early on, and for reasons that are kind of unclear, they didn't go with that plan, and they instead went to just the per pickup plan. But I would imagine that in the coming years, they're probably going to adopt that system. An important thing to note about this system and some of the other ones is that you would think that the TNCs, by the transportation network companies, would be very opposed to these because they wind up paying these taxes. But it's actually, they actually support them in certain cases for various reasons. One is that it will apply to their competition as well. Another one is that they do have kind of like a social consciousness type branding and a mission. So there's people that work in these giant companies that are interested in like reducing congestion. And the long-term goal of these companies is not to be in this personal ride thing where you pay $6 and they get like $1 or something for going to your house and taking you to Walmart. Their long-term goal is to make huge amounts of money by just having these sort of almost like a van service of people with the Uber Pool and Lyft line, the shared ride services, just ceaselessly circulating in these dense areas. And so by putting these taxes like this, they make that more possible because it frees up congestion, so that kind of trip can circulate much more quickly. They can get more people to do it. And also, they have these discounts that apply to the shared rides. So it kind of makes the shared ride more attractive relative to other types of trips. So that's their long-term goal. And if you go talk to them, they're very excited about this, and they have a lot of people working on it. That's how they intend to make quite a bit of money in dense cities. It would just be like somebody just circulating, and then as they go along, they're just ceaselessly picking up and dropping off people in these shared rides. So there's almost no idle time. So that's their big agenda. The other thing is that they support this, but they support it very specifically as a prelude to congestion pricing. So it's supposed to be like kind of a thing where by stomaching this tax on only the TNCs are hoping that it will kind of inspire the city to move forward and to tax all trips. So that would include truck trips, private travel into Lower Manhattan. And if that happens, then they think that a lot more people will wind up taking the Uber and Lyft because the tax here will be something like $11. So you could probably, in many cases, you'll be able to save money by taking the Uber and Lyft, especially when you count, parking and gas used and everything. So that's something to keep in mind, is that these taxes are in many cases somewhat supported. They always give a lot of input, but they're not exactly opposed. And then finally, I'll just move on to the last slide. Which is Sao Paulo has implemented that per kilometer system. However, it's not really to raise very much money. It's a very low fee. In Sao Paulo, Brazil, it's just there to defray some of the costs of regulating the system. And also, as part of it, they required Uber and Lyft to share enormous amounts of data, or just Uber and Sao Paulo, to share huge amounts of data with the city, which they have set up this thing called, I think it's called MobiLab, where they are researching the travel patterns in the city and using it to plan their network better. All right, well, that is all that I have to say. Hopefully you understand that there's different taxing, the TNCs and taxis is not like one-dimensional. There's a lot of different, there's geographic dimensions and also dimensions as far as the basis of the tax. You understand that there's many motives for these, but the main ones are the curbing congestion, raising money for transportation projects, and also kind of leveling the playing field by the taxis, TNCs, and transit. All right, so I think I have time for just a little bit of questions, or?
Question for Professor Lee.
How much of an impact is this making on the parking decks and garages in the major cities?
The only one that I know about is in London, where they had estimated that, I don't know the impact, I don't know what the size of the impact was, but I remember that it was reducing some revenue, and that they had, the TfL, Transport for London, had noted that.
I thought Singapore had some kind of geographic tolling.
Yeah, they do. Yeah, it's very complicated, so I didn't go into it. They don't do a special treatment for taxi cabs very much, so it's just for all vehicles there, yeah.
Louis, what's the gross take on this? If I pay $1 in fees, how much of that goes to administering the program and how much goes to, quote, building a subway or expanding the system?
Well, so that's one of the things about these is that because they're not traditional tolls, there's not a lot of administration that has to go into it. They just sort of legally obligate, Uber and Lyft to give them part of the money, right? So it's kind of, and in many cases they already have taxes. So it's not a big administrative burden. There is an administrative burden on regulating Uber and Lyft. And that's what I was saying originally, is that a lot of like even Alabama and Wyoming and places you wouldn't think of, they are already taxing Uber and Lyft as a way of as paying for the administrative burden of, regulating these systems. But there's not much of an additional burden in levying this kind of tax, because these are gigantic corporations, right? So you just tell them you need to send this in, and you get audited if you don't. But it's not a lot on top of what's already going on. It's not like setting up toll booths and such.
Has there been any meetings about doing this at a greater level than just a city, like a state, a let's say the state of Illinois is an example, not that I'm proposing that, but.
Yeah, well, like I said, like a lot of states they already tax them as a way, because like, for example, in California, Uber and Lyft are mainly regulated at the state level by the Public Utilities Commission, and that's like become kind of a common model because they go across city boundaries so much, and also because early on, as far as the regulatory fights, the TNCs decided to fight it at the state level rather than at the city level, where the taxi interests are not as powerful at the state level, so that's where they took the fight. So a lot of these fees and the whole regulatory apparatus is happening at the state level, but in general, like I said, at the state level, it's generally about just covering the cost of the regulation and such, rather than paying for state level fees. But that is definitely, I think, something that could happen. There's nothing stopping it from happening.
Okay, well, thanks, Louis. Very interesting. So our next speaker, Mr. Paul Kovacs, will give a tollway update. Mr. Kovacs is Chief Engineering Officer for the Illinois Tollway, and he's responsible for the policy, practices, and procedures for this engineering department, which oversees design, construction, and operation of the tollway's 294-mile system and serving 1.6 million daily users. He's currently overseeing, as you know, the Illinois Tollway's 15-year, $14 billion capital program called Move Illinois, the Illinois Tollway Driving Future. We're proud to say Paul's a alumni of the Department of Civil and Environmental Engineering. He's a professional engineer in Illinois and Michigan and brings 35 years of professional experience in transportation. So let's welcome Paul.
Thank you. Glad to be here again. ILL. All right, I just had to do that. The more I come down here, the more engaged I get with this college. And you see I have a nice eye on my blazer here. A lot of people have asked me about it, and my coat that I have the eye on. I keep telling them I'm getting all my clothing embroidered. They don't realize I just am getting the sticker from down the hall here. But I really am glad to be here. I have an iPad with the presentation on it. I have notes with my presentation on it. I'm going to keep track of my likes on this Wova app as I'm speaking, so please. This is going to add a whole new dimension, distracted speaking. So I only have a few remarks. I don't have any slides, and I just wanted to say a couple things. Oh, I did want to say one more thing about the app. Hope Garrett, she's from the Tollway. She's on the leaderboard right now. We're going to have to get her a little gold cup when we get back. So appreciate that. I did want to say congratulations to Omer. I think that's awesome that he's going to serve in this position. I think that the state has been very lucky to have Randy and now Omer stepping in. These guys, they live and breathe transportation here. You could tell when Omer was speaking, I mean, it's in his heart. So I think we're very lucky to have that. I also truly appreciate the fact how he You know, if you're in a leadership position at one of these agencies in the state, you very quickly realize that, you know, you have a lot of staff that are supporting you and making sure things are getting done on a daily basis, and they work extremely hard, and they don't get thanked enough directly. So I really appreciated that Omer did that for his folks, and I would like to pass that on to all the tollway staff also. They do an amazing job every single day, and we're very fortunate to have them working for us. I especially want to thank Manar and Lanye, because they're on the committee for THE, and you know, they've been making sure that the tollway has a good presence here. And the last person group I'm gonna thank is our roadway maintenance folks are here. Wade Tabor, Darian Robinson, Steve Medness. They're our roadway maintenance and incident management team. So here's one great thing about them. They really promote this culture of 24/7 service to people on the road at the tollway. Like, they drive that, and safety. They're driving that every single day into the tollway's culture and into our agency. And in engineering, we spend a lot of time reminding ourselves that, you know, they're out there on the front line treating the customer. We need to be treating them as our customer, because engineering only interacts with the roadway temporarily. You know, we put together plans and we go out there and build stuff, and it screws things up for 2 or 3 years, and then they have to take care of it when we're done. So really, you know, changing that mindset and getting them to give you input on your projects has been, I think, very critical for the tollway, and they do a fantastic job. I'm praying that they get us through this winter season. It's been crazy these last few months, and they've just been keeping track of the salt, keeping track of all the winter materials. Everybody has been working lots of overtime, so I hope you take those words back to staff, because they have been doing a fantastic job of keeping our road open and safe. I love this conference. I recognized as soon as I got down here on Monday night that I missed this whole pre-conference, pre-game, so to speak. I heard that there was a great talk on design build, and you got to hear from two folks that I really admire. Jay Chiglo, he worked on some open road tolling plazas for us back in 2005. He spoke, and Kalen McAtee, he was actually at the tollway for a little while. They came back and talked to us about all these fantastic jobs that they're doing elsewhere for billions of dollars using design build and alternate delivery methods. I think the title of their presentation was Even Jay and Kalen Can Do It, Why Can't You? So I really, there's a message there. I mean, we need to get involved, and I'm hopeful we do get something going. I really like the speaker on safety that we had on the opening day. Just the reminder about complacency and how, you have to fight that so that you can be more safe. And he was talking about being on the top step of the ladder, and I just did that on Sunday. So it's like, that really hit me. I only raised my hand like halfway because I was really embarrassed about that. But I mean, we need those reminders, and we need to keep reminding, our staff. And I also really like this presentation that Professor Al-Qadi did, Ahmad did, on this new track here, and how important that's going to be to have that type of facility here in Illinois. I really hope that we get this going. I think it's going to be very important for us. I'm predicting it right now. So right now, we're trying to, in our field in transportation, we're trying to push the initiative. We need to get ahead of this. We need to start finding out about autonomous and connected vehicles. We need to recognize how that's going to have a big safety impact, a big safety component to it on our system. And right now, the public doesn't know that much about it. I mean, we know a little bit about it. The public doesn't know that much about it. And I think the dynamics are going to switch very, very soon. The public's going to start becoming aware, hey, we have all this technology out there. Hey, I just, my family members were just killed in a crash that I know is preventable if you implement this new technology and get it out there. I mean, it's going to switch. And then the pressure, you know how it works for us. It's like we try to get ahead, and then pretty soon we're behind. And everybody's like, can't you do this faster? Can't you get this going? So I think that's on the way. So I'm really happy to see that type of leadership coming out of the university here. I did get to stand in the back of the room and see Amy Lee and Matt talk about the Central Tri-State, so I wanted to go there and listen to that. I learned something in that presentation. I learned that if you get asked a question, I might be using this later, that you ask, is Wade Tabor in the room here? Wade needs a little work on teamwork because he actually was in the room, but he didn't actually help out on that question. So I really liked that. I really liked going to that thing last night at the Colonnades. That was me. As a state employee, I was a little nervous about being in a skybox, but I figured, it's THE, it must be approved. So, I really liked that. I did go out to Legends last night. I had like 3 Diet Cokes. I saw, Carl Shadle there. What a great guy. I mean, he's a great engineer. He's a great speaker. If you went and heard him, he spoke at one of the conferences. He dresses awesome. He was wearing, and I got to see him dancing. Amazing. So speaking of a guy who has it all, then I got to witness a band made up of engineers. And they sounded amazing. I mean, that left and right brain going for them. That's amazing. So my talk is pretty brief, and so I'm going to also mention, I do have to thank most of the people in the room here because you have been involved in all of our projects. We've been delivering them successfully. For quite some time now. We could not do it without your assistance and without your expertise and without your cooperation. So we do truly appreciate that. So the tollway, this is going to be an important fact. Tollway has 294 miles. That's what we're up to right now. 1.6 million people driving on it on a daily basis. We are separate from IDOT, so we don't get state and federal tax dollars. It's a user fee system. Our mission statement is providing and promoting a safe and efficient system and ensuring the highest possible level of service to our customers. I've been completely committed to delivering that mission over the almost 20 years that I've been at the tollway so far. And over the past 15 years, is when we really started delivering these big capital programs and gaining some momentum and some experience. And we're going through a lot of changes right now. So we had an election. There's a lot of people, switching positions. But the one thing that I truly recognize and value is the tollway has been consistently improving, consistently getting more productive and more efficient at delivering its projects over the past 15 years. So, that's something that I don't believe is going to be changing. And I think that that's awesome. That's an awesome asset for the state to have. So over the past 15 years, we've been tasked with 2 capital programs that total $20 billion. So that's where I'm going to go back to this. The tollway has had $20 billion, and we've rebuilt most of our system. We've widened it. We put it into a very, very good state of repair right now. We got very good inspection reports on all elements of our system. We have done a couple new things, right? We've converted 390 to a tollway. We've extended the south extension of 355, 12 miles. But that's $20 billion for 294 miles. I'm hopeful that the state is going to get a capital program going. Anybody thinking about a number that's, $20 billion for 290, you're all engineers, you know the ratio, we could scale it up. We really need to do a lot. And I hope that I hope that we're able to make that impression on the public and get them behind us so that they can support, a large capital program so that we could start, spurring economic activity, creating jobs. Right now, we're in the Move Illinois program. It's 15 years. We adopted it at the end of 2012. We're about halfway through it. So by the end of 2019, of the $15 billion, we'll have spent $7 billion. So we'll have, roughly $8 billion left after that. It's done a fantastic job for us. 1,300 unique construction and professional engineering firms have worked on this program since we started it in 2012. We've created or sustained nearly 67,000 jobs. So those are all people that are living in Illinois here, getting work, doing productive work, and actually building things that are going to continue to deliver economic benefits to the state for a long time to come. So we cannot underestimate, what kind of impact capital program will have. And I expect that the state's program will make these numbers, seem really small by comparison. And we've done so many good things so far. We've gotten 390 opened. That's part of the Elgin O'Hare Western Access Corridor. We rebuilt 62 miles of the Jane Addams Memorial Tollway, widened and reconstructed it. We've added new interchange ramps at 294 and 57. We're going to be wrapping up or starting to wrap up the rest of that interchange this year. And like I said, we've been upgrading and maintaining the whole rest of our system, all 600 bridges, putting everything into a state of great condition. We rely a lot on partnerships to do this. The tollway recognizes how important it is to work in cooperation with everyone else. We recognize that we are a small part of the overall transportation picture, and I think that kind of mentality has also helped us a lot in delivering our projects. I mean, we partner with FHWA, IEPA, EPA, IDNR, U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. We need permits. We need to make sure that we're working hand in hand with those agencies so that they're getting what they need so that they can grant approvals in a timely manner. U.S. Coast Guard, we're working with them right now on the mile-long bridge. It's over a navigable waterway. Utilities, we know every single utility because we cross every single utility. We all have systems that are linear, so we're bound to cross paths at some point. IDOT, they're our most important partner. Our systems are overlapping all along the 294 tollway system. We could not get things done without the type of partnership that we've developed with IDOT. In fact, IDOT, CMAP, Cook, and DuPage counties, they've been working with us on the development of this big interchange on the Central Tri-State Corridor at 294, 88, and 290. Likewise, Manar has been working with the rest of the Elgin O'Hare Western Access team on coordinating with the FAA and the City of Chicago Department of Aviation so that we could build that new ring around the west side of O'Hare, the new I-490. We have Pace Suburban Bus Partnership. They're operating a transit system on our I-90 corridor. Railroads, we're working very closely with the railroads. We have very big projects coming up with the railroad on both the Central Tri-State and Elgin O'Hare. Local communities, it goes without saying, we recognize that we have a lot of neighbors along our roads that we need to work with. And we've been working with them in a manner that lets them get some things for themselves. So we're leveraging our dollars and they're coming to the table with us. And a perfect example of that is our interchange policy. If they want to create additional access in their community, they have to come up with, a commitment of 50% of what it's going to be. And we've been very flexible on identifying ways and means in which the 50% can be met, and we've delivered a lot of great projects that way. And they've been very, very beneficial. This new Balmoral ramp that we have on, I say new, it's not new anymore, but on the Central Tri-State, I mean, that area has just developed economically like you couldn't believe. And they actually paid 100%, and then we agreed to pay them back with the tolls 50%, and it was going to be spread out over 10 years, and we made the money in 5. So, I mean, those types of partnerships are great to have. We work really closely with industry, ACEC, road builders. They've been very good partners for us. We've collaborated. We continue to collaborate with them on safety initiatives, sustainable construction materials, how to improve diversity involvement in our projects. We have an annual workshop. Our general consultant, WSP, they do a fantastic job of these annual workshops. That's coming up in the spring. They're going to introduce any updates we've made to our standards and manuals. I encourage the engineering firms to participate in that. I think you'll find it to be very beneficial. That's coming up. I've had such great success at the tollway because of my recognition of what the industry can do. So the engineering community has never once let me down or the Illinois Tollway down. And a great example of that is in 2018, there was not going to be a lot of work done within the state. So we tasked ourselves with accelerating and trying to get more work out on the street. And they did a fantastic job. We advertised a lot of work, way ahead of schedule for us. We saved $91 million in design and bid savings, so that was very beneficial. There was no competition out on the street. We provided a lot of jobs for industry, construction, heavy highway, and we were able to get a little bit ahead on I-88 and I-355 work. Those routes will be used as an alternate when we start bringing the Central Tri-State under construction, so that made a lot of sense to us. So that being said, you know, what's going to be our focus moving forward, or what's going to be our focus in the near term, and it's summed up in two big corridors that we're going to be working on. 490, that's going to be, as I mentioned, that new route around the west side of O'Hare. It's going to connect into the Tri-State on the south end. It's going to connect into I-90 on the north end. And what you're going to see starting very soon is the work on the interchanges. So we have a big interchange that, you know, is going to be built between 490 and 90. We have a big interchange that's going to be built right where 390 ties in there, and we're going to hopefully go into the west side of the airport. We have the plans developed. We're all relying on Manar for that. And then we're also going to make that critical connection to the Tri-State, 294. That's moving forward. So that's really the near-term focus on that corridor. On the Central Tri-State, 22 miles, it's $4 billion. It's going to go from 95th Street at the south all the way up to Balmoral by the airport. We started on some of that already. We are working very closely with the host of communities, trying to develop regional solutions there, trying to build them into the design work right now. We're going to apply a lot of our lessons learned from the other corridors. We have the I-90 Smart Road. We're looking at ways to incorporate ITS and turn this corridor into a smart corridor also. This year, the two big jobs that are going to be done on Central Tri-State, one is the mile-long bridge, which is appropriately named. It's a big bridge. And then we also have this Burlington Northern Santa Fe railroad bridge that goes over the Central Tri-State. And really why we're pushing those jobs out right now is they're going to set the stage for the rest of the corridor, and they're going to also play a key role in what kind of lanes we could keep open while we're doing the mainline work. So it's very important that we hit the ground running with these two big jobs and make sure that you know, they turn out successfully. We're going to be relying heavily on a lot of folks in this room to help us with that, your time, your talent, and your experience to make those jobs successful. And, you know, we have to start thinking about the future also. And we do that in a very collaborative fashion also. We do have our own internal experts, our general consultant I mentioned, WSP, our traffic engineer, CDM Smith. They are constantly doing projections on traffic. They're constantly doing projection on system needs that we're going to have to address in the future. They're focused on analyzing the system on a regular daily basis to look for operational issues that we need to correct. We're also coordinating with CMAP because we want to be part of the larger picture. By 2021, the tollway has to introduce its look ahead or its projected 10-year capital plan on a regular basis. And in 2021, we do have to submit one to the governor and the Illinois legislature. So that will be coming up. So there's going to be a lot of ideas coming in over the next couple of years to get built into that plan. So conclusion, the tollway is going to continue to do what it's been doing over the past 15 years. We love working on these projects. We love delivering these improvements to the public. We're going to be relying on everybody here to help us do that. We are going to continue to work in a collaborative and cooperative manner with all of our partners. We have very ambitious goals, but we know that our cause is true. We recognize that industry, the communities, IDOT, and our other transportation partners have been very critical to our success in the past, so we want to continue to make sure that they're involved in our future, and we're looking forward to this work. Thank you. Wade, get ready.
Time for a few questions.
Nationwide tolling. So you know the tollway is part of a consortium. We're already linked up with 17 toll agencies, mostly to the east of us. We know there is federal legislation that is geared towards interoperability. That's a very smart thing, so that everybody doesn't have to have a different type of transponder if they're going to travel from place to place. I don't really know much more than that. I think tolling it will not be the sole solution for funding in the future. It will not be the sole solution for addressing congestion. It can be used very effectively. I mean, we're doing it. So I would imagine it will continue to be a part of anybody's transportation future.
Hi. What's the outlook for the Illinois 53 North extension, both in scale and timing, or is it dead altogether?
I won't say that it's dead altogether, but that project, so I have a history with that project. That project is a heartbreaker for me because I dedicated 10 years of my career to it, and I really have found since I've been at the tollway, the best things that I've been involved in are the things that we actually see delivered and built out in the field. And that particular job has a lot of hurdles to cross still before it gets to the finish line, and it is going to take some strong leadership to actually make that happen. So besides that, I know we're in the study phase right now. I know it's continuing on. We'll have to wait and see. They're looking at all alternatives, not just the tolling alternatives. So that's another thing. I think they're doing that very appropriately. Within the study, they are considering all the alternatives. They are doing their work as part of the, EIS process. So I hope that if an engineering solution does come up, that it's a tollway, that we do move forward with it and make it happen.
Okay, thanks, Paul.
All right, thank you.
Let's help Paul out. He's got 17 likes. I know there's more than 17 in here. Our final technical presentation of the conference is on Invest in Cook. We have two speakers for that presentation. Jennifer Killen, or also known as Sis, joined Cook County in 2012 and is the Assistant Superintendent of Transportation and Highways for Cook County, Illinois, the second most populous city in the nation. The department is responsible for all aspects of transportation facility planning, design, construction, and maintenance. Prior to her work at Cook County, she spent 13 years in the private sector. She has a bachelor's degree also from the University of Illinois in civil engineering, so we're proud of that. She's also a licensed professional engineer. Our other speaker is John Yonan. He was appointed superintendent of the Cook County Department of Transportation and Highways in January 2012. John is responsible for all Cook County professional engineering functions, programming, design, construction, and maintenance of the county's infrastructure, which includes bridges, 570 miles of road, 350 traffic signals, and 4 maintenance districts. Prior to that, John spent 19 years at the City of Chicago's Department of Transportation. So let's welcome Sis and John to speak on Invest in Cook.
Got it. All right. Thank you, THE committee, the university, all the folks that I've gotten to know over the years that are here. Thank you for this opportunity to speak. Omer, congratulations on the appointment of acting secretary. We're really, really excited about the years that we've gotten to see you kind of grow into many different things that, in our own personal friendship, we've been able to have some great stories and times together. So congratulations on that. So we want to talk a little bit about how something unique, really happened a few years back when I left the city and came over to Cook County. First and foremost, like a lot of you gathered in the room, when you look at government, and believe me, I got a little criticism when we said that this was going to be an opportunity for us to redo how we do transportation in Cook County. First and foremost, I had to ask the most complicated question, answer rather the most complicated question that, my boss, Tony Preckwinkle, which had a great evening last night, but she asked, so, how many highways are we responsible for? And to be able to try to answer that question with someone that said logically, well, we no longer are responsible for any highways. Like, well, why is that our name? We've got to look at what we do with the purpose of looking at the entire transportation system. And if we don't have any highways responsibility, how could we look at doing things a little bit different? So that's really the context that from the beginning she said, if you could dream about how you would do transportation, how could we do it? And so that's why we say this is the first long-range transportation plan since the beginning when there weren't those highway systems that were built and connecting opportunities. And as Paul, had spoken earlier about the importance of how you look at the transportation network and how could you really make a difference if all you are is responsible for county roads. So with that, the plan was kind of in its inception and worked on it for approximately 3 years. And in August of 2016 is when it was approved. And what it did is, again, establish now when you have a clean slate, how we want to do transportation in an area, the second largest county in Chicago, what we believe the right way, and that is to look at all modes of transportation and come up with the 5 policy priorities that you see listed here. They are actually in priority order, and so when we look at how opportunities can we really build our way out of congestion? Of course, the answer is no, and so the importance of really setting, transit and other modes of transportation, we really see the importance of that in the Chicagoland area. So these policy priorities were ways that we now kind of looked at, and we were actually looking at our 134 municipalities and ways that they're looking to do transportation right, and really came up with these policy priorities that would set now a blueprint of how we want to be able to make transportation investments in our region. So with that blueprint, it was much easier then to take the initiatives to kick off a few programs like the Cook County Freight Plan. So again, when it comes to freight in our area, of course, the freight capital of North America, jurisdictional challenges have made it difficult over the years to try to figure out what projects should be undertaken. And so again, without municipal borders, without even county borders, the decision of going and saying, we want to come up with a comprehensive freight plan was something that we thought would be a policy priority. And of course, in collaboration with what IDOT was doing, we've heard over and over again how Federal Highways really wants to go for performance-based type of metrics to make project selections. Our county freight plan took what we had as our policy priority of freight and came up with now specific projects that regionally we now want to partner with folks like the Tollway, use whatever kind of creative funding that's available out there today, and then advocate for some additional funding for specific freight projects. South Suburban Mobility Study. Again, the story there goes, you've got RTA in our area that's in charge of the CTA, PACE, and Metra. That authority, again, does not have the power to advocate and have those three transit boards work closely together. And our South Suburban Mobility Study outlined ways that if we had a fare card system in the Southland that could be equal to what CTA, which unfortunately is the only mode of choice because of the price, you've got congestion on expressways, you've got the CTA bus lines driving 40 miles on expressways to get to a red line station, and in the meantime, they're passing 4 or 5 Metro stations. So this mobility study said, again, mode neutral, service board neutral, how are we going to look at doing transit differently, and really are going to advocate, and you'll see Cook County come up with a pilot that's going to fund some of this to be able to, again, make transit a favorable transportation option in the Southland. And this mobility study is going to help us feed, and coming in 2012, is our transit plan. Again, this is now allowing us to be multi-jurisdictional, multi-agency, in this case the CTA especially, to be able to look at ways that we can make it more efficient. And then lastly on this bullet, which we're going to spend the majority of this time on, is our Invest in Cook program. And this again is brought as an initiative from our long-range transportation plan that Sis Killen, after she had left the private sector in her little bio and joined the government, truly was kind of the genesis of the thinking of how this was going to actually work on the government side of things. So again, with all the pride of Illinois, I want to introduce Sis to be able to go through that. So.
John, thank you for that. Very happy to talk about investments. There we go. Invest in Cook today in the program creation. I want to spend a little time talking about how exactly did we get here. Invest in Cook is a program that we initiated in 2017, and we decided that it would be an $8.5 million grant program, and that was to formalize the informal work that we had been doing over the last 2 years, where we were really taking projects on an ad hoc basis with really more or less one-off decision-making, projects that our local municipalities may have brought to our attention where, quite honestly, they just need a little assistance. Some of these were projects, most of them actually, were their local roadway systems that did not have county jurisdiction, but we recognized the larger economic impact that is lost if we did not step in and help them advance some of these projects. So we wanted to focus a more structured system looking at project identification, project evaluation, project selection, and project advancement, and create a structured call for projects to eliminate the ad hoc nature of it, but to truly capitalize on the success that we had achieved in doing that. Some of the end goals for Invest in Cook, we wanted to implement projects that were going to help achieve our long-range transportation plan priorities that John just spent a moment outlining. We wanted to focus on the use of performance metrics, not only to validate what projects we're going to jump into priority, but really to measure how we did with those. Too often we focus on what we're going to bring forward, and we don't take a minute to step back and say, did it do what we wanted it to do for our local communities? We want to support local and regional government efforts to build a robust transportation network, and we wanted to focus on advancing projects that would otherwise languish. We wanted to look at that universe of projects that at the county level, we just weren't privy to everything that was happening at the local level. We recognized that, many county routes, many state routes, they traverse the hearts of our local communities and serve as the arteries, and without one of our agencies stepping in to promote improvements, our local communities were suffering. We wanted to take projects that were currently sitting on the sidelines and move them into play. Many times you couldn't access CMAP or CMAC money or STP money because we couldn't complete the phase one. This is where we saw an opportunity to move these projects from the sidelines, bring them into action to allow the studies or preliminary engineering to conclude, and then we can actually move forward to bring these projects into construction. And if we take a minute right now to look at where we're at today with transportation funding, we see CMAP with their regional STP program. We see a capital bill on the horizon. I know we've been saying that for quite some time now, but I know in this room we know it's really coming and it is going to be soon. And we know that this program really helped seed some projects so that they could get off the ground when these funds do indeed come online. As we were developing our program, there was a lot of agency coordination that had taken place. We worked with IDOT, we worked with the RTA, we worked with CMAP, we formulated workshops and had project reviews with these entities to ensure that the projects that we were going to advance had synergy with what else was happening in the universe and that we weren't operating unilaterally from that. As we look at eligibility, our Invest in Cook program can be any project on any jurisdiction, and an applicant need only be they need to have jurisdiction or control over a transportation asset within the county. With that, it really opened the door that if you needed to see a project move forward, this was your ticket to do so. We differentiated ourselves from other programs in that any phase of a project, including land acquisition, and this is something we know we don't see, and that can be one of the hiccups to really getting that project over the finish line and advancing into construction. This is how we differentiated ourselves. And again, we were looking at focus on local projects. We have our pipeline of projects for the county program. The state has their pipeline as well. But as we think about what Paul had said earlier, you know, opportunities to advance some of the local projects that really have ties into the regional projects that are advancing by other agencies, this was the time to have them move at the right time with the right synergy and quite honestly obtain some good bid pricing in the process. So Paul, we thank you for that. This becomes more important again just because as we're on the cusp of the capital bill, we recognize what opportunities truly lie out there and where our local needs truly are. The application process itself, we wanted to ensure it was very simple. Nobody wanted to undertake an infra-level effort in order to tap an $8.5 million fund. So the application was very simple, not labor-intensive, and we wanted to ensure for equity purposes that it did not require a lot of labor and effort to go into the pre-analysis just to allow you to go to an application and check a few boxes and see where you stand. We wanted to ensure that it was open, it was equitable, and enabled our local municipalities to advocate for themselves for what they needed to do, not have to secure a contract to go out to fill out an application and then move back out again. We wanted to have them ready to put these projects out on the street for you. As we look at how these projects were evaluated, it was pretty simple. We came up with both quantitative and qualitative measures, and the importance in doing that is that the quantitative numbers can only tell us so much. Many times we have all worked on great projects that as you're going through the metrics and checking boxes and filling in values, you sit back and you say, but it's just not selling it the way we know it is. It's not communicating the true value of the project for what we know it is. So we added on that extra step of the qualitative evaluation to give our applicants the chance, you know, to sell the projects beyond the numbers, because we know that there's more to that life beyond the numbers that are presented for us. And in that evaluation process, we work with our applicants to help tease out and pull out how it tied into our long-range transportation plan. Again, this is how our project selection metrics were going to be moving forward, and we wanted to ensure that each of our applicants had the opportunity to convey that to us. There were no misses on this. You weren't going to have a debrief with us that said, "Aw, shucks, if only I had communicated X, Y, or Z." We really put all those opportunities out there because what we wanted winners. We wanted all winners on these projects. We wanted our jobs to be hard, much to the detriment to the staff that had to spend hours and hours and months evaluating them. So as we get into the evaluation, we separated things out by mode so that we can compare transit against transit, freight, bike ped, and roadway projects, because the evaluation criteria are absolutely different, and the benefits that they bring, you can't always align those quantitative measures, so we broke them out separately. When it came to the quantitative evaluations, we use traditional open metrics that CMAP uses, but as you look down on the metrics here, you see things that were not typically associated with Cook County, many of them not associated with traditional roadway improvements. We're looking at transit ridership, facility condition, crashes, transit deserts. Where can we embark upon projects that not only deliver the facility itself, but what is this facility going to do for the communities that it serves in? What is it bringing to them? As we look at the qualitative assessment, again, this is where we are really affording our applicants the chance to tell the story about what it means to them with a focus on our very low and low-need communities, that they would have to put up a match for this. When we first launched this program in 2017, we had a lot of questions of, is that really true? You don't need a match for this program? And the answer was yes. You know, we recognize that we got to put that seed money in and help get it off the ground because equity was a very large part of what we were doing. I want to spend just a minute or two now talking about some of our submission summaries because I think this is information that many don't see. You're going to see the winners that come out, but there wasn't a lot of advertisement on what type of projects came in and what our team was looking at. So in 2017 and 2018 respectively, we had 106 applications, and in 2018, 84, so down a touch, but that was really because applications were, or the awardees from the last year were still getting up off the ground, so they didn't submit for the next phase of their project. And as we look at the subscription rate, now this is something that we were not surprised to see. We had amounts requested in excess of $40 million. We started out talking that we only had an $8.5 million program, and a challenge that was posed to us, say, well, what can you really do with 8.5? The intent of Invest in Cook was to take the monies that we would award out and have that serve as leverage to other opportunities. Again, get those projects off the sideline and put them into action. The total cost of projects in the ask was over $650 million. So that's the subscription rate that we had to our $8.5 million grant program. As we take a look at the types of projects that we had received, this is where we really saw that our message was being heard, that we were breaking away from our traditional focus on roads and bridges. And you see as we move from left to right, you know, about a dozen transit projects. As we look at Bike Ped, this is what was most astonishing to us, is that you see that high level of application for it. And while we say it was astonishing, it really wasn't all that surprising. When we were thinking about Invest in Cook, you know, when I first come over to the county, a lot of the requests that we had received from our local agencies was, what can we do about sidewalks, multi-use paths, bike paths? And we would put our hands up and say, well, we will do that as part of a project when we get there. You know, and communities were really held at our mercy, and this is how we knew that we were doing the right thing with the right ask. As we looked at freight projects moving from 2017 into 2018, a half a dozen to nearly a dozen. So again, our message was resonating and they were able to see what benefits would come with application to the program, and we wanted to work on truck routes in communities, again, that really were the heart and soul and the workforce for many of our communities. We also did receive about 3 dozen of our traditional roadway projects that ranged from just roadway resurfacing to roadway reconstruct, some that kind of dance that line between traditional roadway, or we could say this is actually first last mile to transit or access to freight opportunities. And then as we talk about what types of projects were selected in there, we had over 64 projects that were identified in 2017 and 2018 in aggregate, 11 transit, 25 bike ped, 13 freight, and 15 roadways. So you see our intent was to broaden our portfolio, and we did do just that, really trying to be modally diverse, geographically diverse. Cook County is that, you know, very large, irregularly shaped blob that you see on the screen. We need to spread our projects across that entire mass to serve as many communities as we can. We had a very large focus in the program with over 50% of our funds going to low and moderate income communities. And we had projects in every county district, and we touched 53 municipalities with these projects. Many of the projects that you see up on the screen are those that are multi-jurisdictional. That was a big focus in the program because a local municipality has their boundary lines. There's a project that needs to be done that may span 2 or 3 communities, and we left it to the local to make the decision if it was one that they were willing to take on and lead, or if it was a better fit for the county because we can span municipalities, or if the complexity or the coordination that was required to advance that project was something that they sought our leadership in doing. We were absolutely happy to take that on, but it was at their request. This was not a micromanagement of how things needed to be simply because you had our money. We wanted to place that extreme value on partnership and collaboration. The largest success story that we had from the program is that with our $14.2 million that was invested in communities in the last 2 calls, we were able to leverage $34.4 million from federal, state, and local sources. Folks, this was the end game that we were looking for. We weren't looking to just put the $8.5 million on the street. We knew that with this program, we could take that $8.5 million and turn it into more. And you see right here that we have had great returns on that investment. So right now I'm going to turn it over to John. We're going to go through some of the projects that we are advancing as part of Invest in Cook. I can't say enough how pleased I am with the success of this program, and John had mentioned when I had completed my profession in the private sector, coming over to government, you say, what can we do that can truly make a difference? I'm very happy to say that this is a project or a program that has made an absolute difference for every community in Cook County. So I'd like John to take the opportunity now to walk through some of our projects.
So the projects become the storytelling, and I think, Paul, that's the one thing that over and over again you said that you really enjoy, and so it's not just in your capital improvement program. How are these projects, besides that quantitative, qualitative analysis, kind of come together? And so every year, Cook County, by statute, gives $2 million to the CTA. Never know what the heck it goes for. They just send us the receipt. And so when we gave them an opportunity now to say, why don't you apply for Invest in Cook? Lo and behold, the Blue Line, which is a very key artery to the Bludgeon and West Loop, the buildings that are going up, they realize they can't put more trains on it because there's a power issue. A power issue that, with these service boards all crying poor, there's no money for them to do a simple study, but something that we know is very, very tangible. Very tangible because one of our chiefs here, which I'll call out later, takes that line, and he literally is 4 people deep and has to watch 3 or 4 trains go by on that Blue Line from 7 to about 8:30 in the morning. So the reality of how the CTA, amongst all the projects that they want to do, this Blue Line study was something that they want to, as their policy priority, or as their Invest in Cook priority. The other project, as Sis had mentioned, the challenge with the Southland continues to become that there is federal dollars through our councils of government that these communities are just not able to come up with the match. And when those challenges are there, it's very difficult for our region to ask for more federal money when we're not drawing down the federal allocations to our councils of government. And so in this particular project in the Southland, transit, as I had mentioned before, in Harvey, 147th Street, there are some PACE buses that within this being a hub, it takes folks out to University Park down in Will County from some of the Amazon area, and it's truly a transportation hub, but are you really going to leave it to the village of Harvey to try to figure that out? Again, the challenges they have, the things that they want to see happen, this isn't a PACE problem, which is right next to, again, a pretty, large Metra station that's there. And so for Metra, this particular project, along with PACE, was their priority. And as I said, then our mobility study, this was the project that opened our eyes to the mobility study, because there are buses here who now are right next to the Metra Electric, but they jump on a bus because it's cheaper to get to the Red Line, which you can transfer, and all those additional buses are on the expressway system. Why? When all we needed in this particular area, in our mobility study, as you'll hear more about, was able to do a fee that would be equal and equitable so that they could go up to the platform instead of sitting on a bus in congestion. So that's the story behind this Harvey Intermodal Center. Bike ped, I don't know if Shane's still here, but one of the last things that Shane Schneider did as the Glenview village engineer was put an application in to look at, again, for us, how the municipal borders on a bike path. Again, in our multimodal priority, a bike path that a lot of these municipalities, based on the way funding is distributed, are only going to build it within their municipal boundaries. But this particular path, again, goes all the way into Lake County, and it was just, again, one of those things that now Shane's, of course, a Lake County engineer, and had been now working on bringing it to the Cook border, and then through Cook, through 3 municipalities, they teamed up. And they put an application in, and now, again, our ability to help fund either the engineering firms or some of the application process to make this, again, not stop at municipal boundaries anymore. The other project in the Southland, which again was a big deal for them, there's some flooding concerns along Natalie Creek, but more importantly, just bringing people down to the waterway. Multi-jurisdictional opportunities with the success of the Riverwalk in the city of Chicago to have something locally in the Southland that they can take pride in bringing people close to the water to be able to enjoy, again, away from traffic, away from a lot of the congestion in and around Midlothian, Crest Crestwood, Blue Island. And so this particular project, again, spanning multi-jurisdictional and promoting a healthy lifestyle, which again, in transportation, we continue to talk more and more about that, but was one of the projects that ranked high and was a successful applicant. On the freight side, so you've got the Illinois Port Authority. Great agency, state agency, City of Chicago appoints boards and directors, the state does also, and there is freight that's moving in and out of that all the time. But there's also some of those roadways that nobody ever thought, you know, maybe we could make some investment of federal dollars to rebuild these roads. Again, originally built, they're not on a federal aid route. Oh, really? Well, okay, then why don't we make them a federal aid route? Obviously, freight's on them. Butler Drive, working closely with the Port Authority's Executive Director, Clayton Harris, the thoughts of how we could make this project move forward was let us take it over, let us be, you know, the ones who take it as our Invest in Cook applicant, designate it as a federal highway, and now federal dollars along with the city going and getting some TIF dollars program to it, was then able to cobble together some state dollars. So once again, something that was just an idea, a road that literally is rubbleized today in a fenced-off area that everyone thought was just, you know, not FHWA eligible for federal dollars, but today is, and again, aligned some of those additional fund sources that you see listed there. Then the last project on here, which is I think the reason why we're actually up here speaking today, is Brian Umbright and I, years back when, you know, we were kind of chatting about our long-range plan and how, you know, is this Invest in Cook really, what is it really about? Franklin Avenue, again, was brought to our attention because of our partnership with the Tollway. That great, you know, we're going to get this southern bypass, the Elgin O'Hare western access, but then it's going to come down if we ever get this Taft Avenue. Do we need the Taft? The street called Franklin, which is just an absolute disaster for the trucking area to come through and make the moves. It's one lane in each direction, so any turning movements queuing up all of this traffic. And so this was Franklin Park's nightmare. Nightmare that they did not have any idea, any plan as to how they were going to go about getting dollars. The Council of Governments could cobble $6-7 million for everybody every year, and there was no way this project was ever going to be a priority for the village to advance. And so again, Tollway's leadership bringing us there, that with this, you know, southern or western bypass and kind of the southern leg into the Jane Addams to 294, there would be so much advantage to how Franklin gets rebuilt that would allow some of the truck traffic to have the direct access that the Tollway was going to be building. So working closely with the village, this was one of those conversations we had with Brian. It's like, yeah, this is the project we need. This is the project that we'll commit to working with the village. And although it wasn't originally one of the Invest in Cook projects, we put money towards it because we saw so much opportunity for this project to get additional funding. And it was around the same time that, as I said, we were working closely with the state, with the leadership that came in about doing performance metrics and looking at projects that would fit their state freight criteria. Again, Federal Highways had asked the state to come up with a freight plan, come up with ways that they are going to make their freight investments. And so they also came out with a quantitative, qualitative analysis of how they were going to allocate roughly $42 million a year for freight projects. So this Franklin Avenue was kind of starting to advance through the little, you know, village of Franklin Park. They engaged the consulting industry to see the feasibility of it, leveraging the Tollway's exposure. The Tollway being the one to say, yes, this is a policy priority project. And then when the state freight competition of projects and applications was completed, this one particular project was the #1 bottleneck in the entire state of Illinois. Application-wise, state actually, IDOT had to apply for freight dollars for their particular projects, and this lonely project in Franklin Park was the #1 project ranked for bottleneck. And so absolutely, it was one of those priority fundings from the state. Some of our dollars, flexibility with the Tollway on what might happen with some soft match, and this project, again, is fully funded, and now we got to hurry up and design it and get it out to construction. So, you know, the flavor of what our long-range plan, setting policy priorities, and an initiative of what an Invest in Cook has done, really, we believe is the way transportation should be done in the future. But like a lot of you know, gone and given kind of the different speeches out there, the challenge we have is that government's still at times broken. And the partnership with the consultants that we see in this room, we really owe it to you that government's working close together. And again, I mentioned Omer's name earlier and the opportunities of the closeness of what IDOT's rebuilding, the partnership with the tollway. We got the munis in, you know, Cook locked in, the county engineers in the region. We're ready to do government better for you all. And so now what we need is to continue to be more efficient and better at doing government. And so I wanted just to shout out of our commitment to THE with the staff that's here today. So we've had 3 of our bureau chiefs, Holly Seachy, Noel Basquin, and Tara Orban, that are here today, along with some recently hired managers, and Adam James and Brian Roberts and Paulino Leyva, who's overseeing that coordination on a number of the tollway projects. So we are committed to, again, trying to listen, do things bigger and better, but it's all going to come with the partnership. So with that, just a little bit of our kind of schedule for what's on the street today. And again, realizing that some, you know, of the consultants in this room may be looking at various projects for these municipalities. I'm telling you, don't take it for granted. I still yesterday got a call from a mayor. Hey, do you have a project that I could submit? It's, well, might as well, the town of Robbins, Luis Robbins, Mayor Ward calls me, like, I don't know what to do. He can't hire a consultant to go a PCI and figure out what roadways, and can you help me? And in the Southland, the challenges that we have, a great, you know, infrastructure, transit served, just needs a little help. And so when I hung up, I said, sure. Luis, could you help him? So again, thank you for this opportunity. We'll open up for some questions, and glad to be able to answer any of them. So, is this anything else? Nope.
Questions? Questions for Sis or John?
Can you hear me?
Great.
Getting back to the county arterial system, you've got about 500 centerline miles roughly that you're responsible for. Last time I looked, you would need to let about $50 million a year in lettings just to keep this system status quo. I know in the past 5 years you've been nowhere near that. How do you plan on addressing this deferred investment in the highway system?
No, it's a good question. And of course, when you saw the policy priorities, this was an Invest in Cook talk, so I didn't want to get into, you know, our third, you know, policy priority. And then the fourth is maintaining and modernizing our system. Obviously, you know, transportation investments in the region, you know, Sis talked about a capital bill that we need to bring. We need to make, obviously, the case that our 570, you know, miles of road also need to be rebuilt. But I really believe at this time, and Franklin Avenue demonstrated this, the leadership in IDOT demonstrate that we can't just be focused on our own assets and truly make transportation differences here. You've heard the story before that Cook County was using $45 million annually to basically plug their public safety hole. That ended under Madam President's leadership, and we really believe, again, with the stats and the projects that Sis had listed, this is the way transportation has to be done. If IDOT's going to go back to just fixing IDOT roads and all the counties are going to just do their county roads, the municipalities are not going to get this done. And we've got to make and step up as leaders transportation initiatives that we believe are, for all of our, at least the Northeast region, what best serves the citizens. So that is where, again, on our maintain and modernize, hey, we're down there saying raise motor fuel tax. So that's my answer.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
So we're now into our awards presentation. I'd like to call up Mike Pettigo, Mason County Engineer, also President of the Illinois Association of County Engineers. He'll be presenting the Illinois Association of County Engineers Student Scholarships and Zone Awards. Yeah, just go ahead, and we'll just tell them to come over.
Hello, everybody. My name is Mike Pettigo. I'm the Mason County Engineer. I'm also the President of IACE. In case anybody's wondering, Carl Schodel did not give me he did not give me any fashion tips. Carl did not today, so this is all me doing this. It's an honor to be here representing the county engineers. Every year, IACE awards scholarships to 5 outstanding civil engineering students here at the university. So at this time, I'd like to introduce each one of them and read the bios and ask that they would step over here. So our first recipient, Gabe Brayboy. Gabe is a senior. His primary area of study is transportation. His secondary area of study is construction. Gabe is from Bureau County. Gabe has been involved with the student chapter of the American Society of Civil Engineers, the Civil Engineering Student Committee, the projects board for the Chi Beta Pi Engineering Honor Society, Illinois Pride, Illini Pride, and the Orange Crush. In addition, Gabe has worked with Habitat for Humanity, volunteered at the Wesley Food Pantry, and will act as a co-director for the Civil Engineering Networking event that is tonight, I believe.
Yep.
So, okay. Our next scholarship recipient is Sylvia Kapirik. Sylvia is a sophomore. Her primary area of study is transportation. Her secondary area of study is undecided. Sylvia is from Cook County. She is a member of the Women's in Engineering and a member of the American Society of Civil Engineers. She has been a Chicago Park District lifeguard for 3 years and loves volunteering at the Chicago Food Depository in her free time. Our next recipient is Jack Miller, and Jack's not here. I like Jack's smile, by the way. Jack is a junior. Primary area of study is transportation. His secondary area of study is water resources. Jack is from Lake County. In the CEE department, Jack is a student advisor, and he gives tours of the department on E-days. He is also involved in the university's interfraternity council. Jack is currently studying abroad in Amsterdam, Netherlands, so congratulations to Jack. Our next recipient is Angel Montero. Angel is a sophomore. Primary area of study is transportation. Secondary area of study is undecided. Angel is from Lake County. Angel is a part of the Illinois Biodiesel Initiative, a student-run organization that produces biodiesel and soap from used vegetable oil from the dining halls. Oh, cool. That's neat. Yeah. Our next recipients, Catherine Seebauer. Catherine's a junior. Area of study is transportation. Secondary area of study is construction. Catherine is from Champaign County, and she's a member of the Campus Honors Program, the Chancellor's Scholars. She works as a learning assistant for a Revit modeling course and is a civil engineering student advisor. In her free time, she enjoys volunteering with the Boy Scouts and attending Illini sporting events. So congratulations to all the scholarship recipients. Those were the short bios. Now I'd like to introduce the zone county engineers, Zone 1, 2, and 3, County Engineers of the Year. Zone 1, Lawrence Kinzer from LaSalle County. Larry received his degree in civil engineering from the University of Illinois in 1977. After graduation, Larry worked for the LaSalle County Highway Department for a period of 11 years before leaving for the private sector, where he worked as an engineer and surveyor for a civil consulting firm and heavy highway construction contractor. Larry holds license in Illinois for engineering and land surveying. Larry rejoined LaSalle County in 1999 as county engineer. Larry, come on up. Our Zone 2 County Engineer of the Year, Eric Sebring from Piatt County. Eric earned his Bachelor's of Science degree in Civil Engineering from the Southern Illinois University at Carbondale in 1996. Prior to becoming the Piatt County Engineer in 2010, Mr. Sebring served as a resident technician in Iroquois County and also served as a Clay County Engineer. Eric is a licensed professional engineer in the state of Illinois and actively participates in the Illinois Association of County Engineers and has held the positions of District President, District Board Director, Legislative Chairman, Secretary, Treasurer, Vice President, and President of the Association. Eric also serves in the National Association of County Engineers, where he sits on the Legislative Committee and the Pavement Preservation Committee. Eric has also served as the Transportation Official Division Chairman, Executive Committee member, and currently sits on the Board of Directors of the American Road Transportation Builders of America. Eric lives in Monticello, Illinois with his wife Danielle. Eric, come on up. On another note, I can vouch this is this guy. So. Good. And our Zone 3 County Engineer of the Year is Kevin Drammer from Union County. Kevin holds a Bachelor's of Science in Civil Engineering from Southern Illinois University, Carbondale. He graduated in 1992. Kevin is a licensed professional engineer in Illinois. Kevin was appointed county engineer in Union County in 2008. His prior experience includes 22 years with the Illinois Department of Transportation and District 9 office in Carbondale. While with IDOT, Kevin held the positions of bridge and hydraulic engineer, traffic operations engineer, and operations engineer. Kevin serves as vice chairman for the Constitution and Bylaws and Emergency Preparedness Committee and a member of the Executive Director and Audit Committee for the Illinois Association of County Engineers. Kevin's experience has also allowed him the opportunity to work with several counties other than just Union County to bring their aging levee systems into compliance with increasing United States Corps of Engineers regulations. Kevin is an avid outdoorsman with Becky, his wife, and his 5 children. They enjoy gardening, traveling, family, and working around the home. Kevin? I'm not sure Kevin is here. That you, Kevin? Okay. Yep. Congratulations to all the award winners. Thank you.
Thank you. Arlene Coker, the Division Administrator for FHWA Illinois Division, Springfield, Illinois, will present the FHWA Engineer of the Year Award.
No, you can open it. There's about 18 clicks, though. So I need to click here?
Here's click.
Okay.
Right button.
The right button. Okay, all right. Well, good morning. It's a privilege and a pleasure to be able to present this award among our colleagues because after all, it is a state-administered, federally assisted program. And it's so weird to be able to do this because I sat in the audience and watched winners for years and years and years. So it's good to be home and be able to do this award. So the FHWA Illinois Division Engineer of the Year Award for 2019. Our award is called the Dennis Johnson Memorial Award, and it honors employees who, and it's awarded, I guess I should say this correctly, awarded in memory of the professional contributions, excellence in work ethic, and strength of personal character exemplified by Dennis Johnson. I don't know if any of you here ever had a chance to work with Dennis. I personally did not, but his legend is unprecedented. He did so many things for the program and for the division and for IDOT that this is a great award, and it's a privilege to receive it. So, the Engineer of the Year Award for 2019 winner is, drum roll, thanks. Chris Byers. Chris is our Metropolitan Transportation Engineer in the Chicago area, and he has worked to assist Region 1 on several projects, two of which Omer mentioned this morning, the Circle Interchange and the interchange for I-55 and Lakeshore Drive. And so Chris helped work on the transportation and the transportation management plan and the work zone management plan for both of those projects, as well as the 41st Street pedestrian bridge. And so he very much deserves this award. So thank you very much, and let's give him another round of applause if you don't mind. Thank you.
Now for IDOT awards, I'd like to call forward Tim Kell, Engineering of Construction, Illinois Department of Transportation, Springfield, Illinois.
All right, good afternoon, or good morning, I guess it is still. We're here to introduce our Engineer and Technician of the Year Awards for IDOT. As I read them off, we'll ask Secretary Osman and the Regional Engineer and the engineers to come on up and be recognized as they receive their plaque. Kyle will be giving them out here. And I'm going to ask the silly question of how do I make this thing work? Just hit the button? There we go. Selection committee this year that selected the engineer and technicians of the year for IDOT were Kenzel Garnett, a Region 3 engineer, Tony Quigley, our Region 1 engineer. Myself, I'm Tim Kell, Bureau Chief of Construction. Beth McCluskey of our Office of Intermodal and Project Implementation. And Nikki Cortez, who is the Director of our Legislative Affairs Office. It was a tough process this year. There were a lot of qualified candidates, and the selection team had a hard time going through this, selecting the candidates that we did. But getting into it, starting off with Engineer of the Year. For District 1, the committee selected Roman Maripolsky, Construction Area Supervisor. Roman has been nominated for his work on the high-profile Jane Burton Interchange reconstruction project within downtown Chicago. With his oversight, a total of 14 contracts have been completed, valued at $224 million. 10 contracts are under construction, valued at $133 million, and 11 are still to be started. In addition to this project, Roman oversaw 31 other contracts valued at $67 million. Many of the projects under Roman have garnered awards for the quality of work. Just recently, the reconstruction of the I-55 at Lakeshore Drive earned the National Transportation Award, as well as top honors at the AASHTO annual meeting. His extraordinary efforts are beyond the normal expectations, who have earned him the recognition as District 1 Engineer of the Year. Congratulations, Roman. District 2 Engineer of the Year is Nasib Musharrif. I hope I said your name right. I apologize if I mispronounced it. The past 2 years, Nasib has been tasked with a $31 million urban reconstruction project on Illinois 2 North Main Street from Auburn Street to Riverside Drive in Rockford. Nasib worked with the numerous businesses along the route that were impacted by the project, as well as handled issues from the general public and local officials. This multi-year project was constructed in various segments using stage construction. Nasib's efforts played a major role and contributed to the project being completed ahead of schedule. For these reasons, along with Nasib's exceptional work, District 2 selected him for Engineer of the Year. Congratulations. District 3 Engineer of the Year is Greg Prairie from our Bureau of Construction. Greg was the resident engineer for the Bourbonnais Parkway and I-57 interchange project. The $46 million contract is the largest awarded project in the history of District 3. The scope included constructing a new diamond interchange, replacing the bridge on I-57, intersection improvements, utility work, roadway lighting, and traffic signals. Greg was also assigned 3 additional projects. Greg and his staff worked long, odd shifts and hours to complete the 24-hour-a-day operation to ensure all work was built to the highest standards. Greg's dedication and commitment has earned him the honor of District 3 Engineer of the Year. Congratulations. District 4 Engineer of the Year, Chris Michard from our Bureau of Studies and Plans out of Peoria. Chris Michard played a significant role in accomplishing the district's annual and state major bridge FY19 program by successfully completing the $250 million Phase 2 replacement of the eastbound US 150 bridge over the Illinois River between Peoria and East Peoria. Chris led the design consultant team to meet the accelerated schedule. His constant attention was key to ensuring the design documents, permitting, right-of-way acquisition, and railroad coordination were all completed by the deadlines. In addition to this project, Chris was the project manager in several other large projects. For the above reasons, District 4 is proud to recognize Chris as Engineer of the Year. Congratulations, Chris. Our District 5 Engineer of the Year is Dave Berkebile out of the District 5 Traffic Operations Bureau. Dave has played a critical role in the planning, design, deployment, and maintenance of the extensive District 5 ITS network, which assists in the monitoring and response to traffic signal issues across the district. Dave shared resources to stakeholders throughout the district and beyond, including the release of a new video management software that allows staff to monitor traffic flow and road conditions during traffic incidents and inclement weather. Dave's ability to integrate emerging technologies into the district ITS network is one of the many reasons he was chosen for Engineer of the Year. Congratulations, Dave. District 6 Engineer of the Year is Jeff Quigg, Senior Construction Resident Engineer. Over the last year, Jeff took on the challenging role as resident engineer of the $86 million Illinois 104 bridge replacement over the Illinois River at Meredosia. Jeff assumed his role as resident engineer as the project was nearing the halfway point due to the retirement of the previous resident. He worked with all the businesses in the project area, including Cargill, I'll probably mispronounce that, which has a major river terminal in Meredosia, to ensure impacts were kept to minimum, holding weekly meetings to coordinate with all involved. For his outstanding work and ethic and dedication to the projects, District 6 has chosen Jeff as their Engineer of the Year. Congratulations, Jeff. District 7 Engineer of the Year, Brent Bierman, Senior Resident Engineer. Brent is nominated for his work on the rehabilitation and widening of the West Brown structure carrying I-70 over the CSXT Railroad east of Vandalia in Fayette County. The contract utilized a median crossover to allow for the construction of the new westbound bridge deck and approach pavements. The structure was built on a skew in excess of 63 degrees. The extremely large skew created many problems, including the deck pours. Brent spent many hours in discussion with the bridge office to determine the best way to construct the pours to result in a smooth deck. Brent's steady demeanor and hands-on approach has proven vital in the pursuit for quality engineering products. District 7 proudly recognizes him as their Engineer of the Year. Congratulations, Brent. District 8 Engineer of the Year is Rebecca Thart from the project support staff in their Bureau of Implementation. Becky is nominated for her work on the $36 million MLK Bridge Ramp project. The complexity of the railroad coordination was extensive, requiring agreements with 4 railroads and an ICC order. After extensive negotiations, Becky succeeded in organizing a final meeting between the railroad and the IDOT Chief Counsel and upper management to obtain an executed agreement at an immense cost and schedule savings to the department. In addition, Becky fostered improvements and innovation in the utility permitting, horizontal directional drilling, railroad coordination, and secured the right of entry on the MLK Bridge. And anyone that's had to deal with the UP lately appreciates the efforts that had to go in to make that happen. Good job. District 8 proudly recognizes Becky as their Engineer of the Year. District 9 Engineer of the Year is Dave Caston, Senior Resident Engineer. Dave was responsible for the oversight of the Wolf Creek Interchange project, which involved construction of a new interchange and overpass structure along with 5.7 miles of new roads, 4.2 miles of expressway lane additions. He had the responsibility of maintaining effective communication with several contractors, utility companies, and approximately 100 property owners. Dave has been the face of the department by keeping the property owners informed of upcoming closures, how their access would be affected, and needed schedules. Dave's work ethic and dedication to the project details make him an excellent candidate for Engineer of the Year. Congratulations, Dave. Central Office Engineer of the Year is Heather Schopp, our geotech engineer out of our Central Bureau Materials. During this past year, Heather accepted the challenge of being the chair of the Illinois host state for the Midwest Geotechnical Engineering Conference, which was held in the Quad Cities. Engineers from the surrounding states all attended this conference. Heather coordinated all aspects of the conference with the geotechnical engineering community, Central Bureau Bridges and Structures, FHWA, the district geotechnical engineers, and the consulting community. Additionally, she is the chair of 3 other research projects. All the above was in addition to other significant tasks beyond the scope of her normal accountabilities. For the above reasons, Heather was selected as the Central Office Engineer of the Year. Congratulations, Heather. With all that said, and everyone did a great job, everyone is deserving of their awards. It was very tough to come down to a final decision of Statewide Engineer of the Year, but the Statewide Engineer is Heather Schopp. Congratulations, Heather. And Heather, is being part of the statewide, that means you have to come up and say a few words.
Tim. Okay, this is a surprise. Thank you. I did a lot of work last year. We accomplished a lot of things. It took a lot of patience and determination, but for me, I also realized that it took a lot of help from a lot of people throughout the state to accomplish what we did. And I was having lunch at the PI meeting with a few friends back in January, and Amy Harms from District 2 coined something that resonated very strongly with me. She said that IDOT wins or loses as a team, and last year what we accomplished is an exact example of that, and everyone from in the geotech units from District 1 all the way down through District 9 assisted in hosting and planning the conference, especially the geotechnical staff in District 8 and the Bureau of Bridges and Structures and myself. We were the core planning team. They were relentless in making things happen. But also, I'm very thankful for the support that we have from our leadership here at IDOT, because they supported us, and it's very appreciative to work in an environment that promotes innovation and lets us have the opportunity to try and build a better tomorrow. So, thank you very much.
Okay, so moving on to the next half, our Engineering Technician of the Year candidates, starting with District 1. District 1 selected Sean Lee as their Engineering Technician of the Year. He's their Design and CAD Coordinator. During the past year, Sean played a significant role in the development and implementation of the statewide 3D open roads technology in District 1. He has been instrumental in developing the skills of over 140 District 1 CAD users in the use of the new software. He worked with the central office and other district CAD managers to develop the 3D modeling implementation plan and providing training for the D1 users. His expert CAD knowledge enabled him to customize and develop MicroStation to significantly enhance productivity and efficiency of the District 1 users. Due to Sean's extensive knowledge in CAD and his leadership abilities, the district has been able to keep up with the increasing growth of technology. For these reasons, Sean was named District 1's Engineering Technician of the Year. Congratulations, Sean. District 2 selected Ryan Hockman. He's a construction resident technician. This past year, Ryan served as a resident engineer on the 10-mile stretch of the Illinois 2 from Grand Tour to Oregon. The project required complete road closure in one direction in order to replace an old open graded mix that varied in depth from 6 to 14 inches, while maintaining access to the local residents and businesses. Ryan, along with the contractor, devised a plan for a rolling closure in sections instead of full closure, which provided effective and safer for the traveling public. Ryan was also an intricate part of the Savannah-Sabula Bridge Project inspection team. Ryan consistently exhibits exceptional abilities and demonstrates great work ethic. For these reasons, Ryan was named the District 2 Engineering Technician of the Year. Congratulations. District 3 selected Chad Tanazi out of their Bureau of Construction resident technician. Chad was a resident technician on the $38.6 million Illinois 89 River Bridge replacement in Spring Valley. Chad coordinated with the Bureau of Bridges and Structures on a number of submittals, including a value engineering proposal. He added bridge painting to several piers, which will save the department money on future maintenance costs. He worked closely with the local community and affected stakeholders to minimize impacts on the traffic and businesses. He accomplished all this with limited staff. Chad's efforts and dedication to details on the project were extraordinary and well-deserving of District 3 Engineering Technician of the Year. Congratulations. District 4 selected Andy Pilkington from their Bureau of Construction. Andy served as a resident technician. He finished up the $37 million, 6.5 miles of new construction of the northbound lanes of a future 4-lane freeway known as Illinois 336. While finishing this, he also started a $14 million drainage and resurfacing project with a complete closure and detour of US 34. Public perception would have suffered without Andy's organization and attentive responses to each and every complaint. Andy represents IDOT as a professional and accepts nothing short of the best design. District 4 proudly recognizes Andy as their Engineering Technician of the Year. Congratulations. District 5 selected Justin Searlock from their project support. He's our CAD supervisor. During the past year, Justin developed and taught 3 project-wise training sessions. He also developed and taught multiple basic power geopack and 3D modeling classes. He worked with the district survey staff to add LiDAR information to existing CAD files. In addition to his duties as CAD supervisor, he accepted the duties of utilities technician, which includes the coordination for all Phase 1 and 2 utility projects in the district's multi-year program. For the above accomplishments are in addition to his normal work assignments. For these reasons, District 5 named Justin as their Engineering Technician of the Year. District 6 selected Stan Clow, Electrical Traffic Control Supervisor. With Stan's leadership, he and his staff brought District 6 into the 21st century with the recent procurement and installation of the new Advanced Transportation Management System. The new system allows for the elimination of over 60 phone lines that connect traffic controllers to individual traffic locations. They are also replacing and or installing over 20 miles of fiber optic cable to support the new ATMS hardware. District 6 is also installing over 20 new pan-tilt zoom cameras to provide around-the-clock monitoring of intersections. This allows staff to make adjustments to the intersection signals from the office, saving time and money. District 6 proudly recognizes Stan as their Engineering Technician of the Year. From District 7, we select Ryan Peterson from the Bureau of Programming Traffic Studies Unit. Ryan's work with the GIS collector application for traffic count locations has proven to be the most efficient and accurate way to determine and set locations for traffic counts. The app was designed to work with tablets, which were not available at the time. Ryan created a web application to allow the software to work on laptops. This was an involved process, but through research and perseverance, Ryan succeeded. The use of the GIS collector app and the web app have eliminated a lot of hand-entered data. For the above reason, Ryan has been chosen as District 7's Engineering Technician of the Year. Congratulations. District 8 selected Nathan Varble, Design and Planning from the Access Permit Technician in the Bureau of Operations. The past year, Nathan was instrumental in the final inspection of the $17 million Missouri Avenue Pump Station. Due to a reduction in local industry who utilized groundwater, the department was tasked with pumping over 6 million gallons of groundwater daily from the interstate and East St. Louis. Nathan acquired advanced training in the electronic system and for the pumps and generators. He spent nights in the pump house during system drawdowns to ensure it all worked. His determination, resourcefulness, and creativity proved him to be a great choice for District 8's Engineer Technician of the Year. Congratulations. District 9 select Dave Barger for Operations Supervisor. Dave was responsible for supervising last year's Ohio River flooding in Gallatin and Hardin counties. He was IDOT's representative at the Shawneetown Emergency Operations Center. He relayed all closure information and handled requests for supplies and assistance from IEMA. David was selected as an asset management program trainer, and he also coordinates the annual winter training for the part-time operations staff. District 9 would like to congratulate Dave on his Engineering Technician of the Year. Central Office Engineering Technician of the Year, Drew Christopher from our Bureau of Design and Environment. Drew accepted a newly created technology support and support manager position for this year, overseeing CAD and GIS support units. He led 2 statewide district CAD managers meetings, bringing in software vendors with demos. The current CAD software suite has many add-on programs that have not previously been shared with the districts. Drew put in many hours to share these software files with the districts and provided technical support and training materials to assist with design and surveys. Drew is currently part of the LIDAR committee. He co-presented on 3D CAD at various conferences. He is actively managing the department's move to ProjectWise. He also provided beginner microstation training, advanced 3D modeling training to all 9 districts. Drew's work has been outstanding for the above reasons, why he was named Central Office Engineering Technician of the Year. Congratulations, Drew. Statewide Engineering Technician of the Year goes to Stan Clow from our District 6 office. Stan, the same rule applies to you as Technician of the Year. You got to come up and say a few words, all right?
Well, I'm very honored to be standing up here. Didn't expect this, but just very humbly accept the committee and those who nominated me and have faith in me. I appreciate it. I want to thank the other candidates who were nominated. Sounds like their bios were just as good as mine. I want to thank them also. I just want to thank IDOT, the upper management leadership team that have allowed myself and our team at operations to just do what we did, giving us the freedom and the confidence to pursue those interests that we have and also to better the motoring public of the state of Illinois. I'd like to thank operations. I'd like to thank Mike Irwin, my supervisor, for having faith and trust in our section. I'd also like to give a special thank you to Bill Shaw, who's worked with me about the last 10 years. Without him and my crew that I work with, there would be no way I'd be standing up here today. I really want to thank them for all that they've contributed. They're the ones that also should get an award too, but thank you much for giving it to me today. I really appreciate it. I just ask that you continue to pursue your dreams and goals too. And thank you, guys.
Thank you, Stan, and thank you very much for your attention.
Well, that brings to close our technical program for this 105th Annual THE Conference. Just a couple notes. Really like to thank our program committee. If you see them, they're all listed in the program. Thank them. They really put a lot of effort into this. Our THE staff, there's numerous, including the students that help out in all the sessions. If you're not coming to the lunch, have a safe travel home, and we'd really like to hear from you, so email me or Megan Everett your feedback about the conference. If you're staying for lunch, just jump in line when you get over to Illini Room C next door here. Finally, as we see the needs for civil and environmental engineering in the state and the nation grow, appreciate if you go home and contact your local high school or junior high and just talk to them about what it looks like to be a civil or environmental engineer. We're society's engineers. We need more of them out there, and we need to tell them what we do every day. A lot of people don't, a lot of parents and kids don't know what civil and environmental engineers do. So have an impact on your local community for that next generation. Thank you. We'll see you next year.